Hello and welcome to a live Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. Today is Monday, May 13th. I hope you had a great Mother's Day weekend. We did. My mother-in-law's been in town. My husband had a bunch of shows. If I got to see you this weekend, I got to see lots of people at lots of shows out in Hill Country, Texas. And it was good to see you guys and to make some new friends and see some old. And yeah, I hope everybody had a beautiful weekend. I'm taking my boots off because today is going to be a pretty heavy topic. It's got me a little riled. Let me just put these down. And I have prayed. I pray before I do podcasts just to have different prayers that I'll do beforehand. And today I had to do a different one and just pray to be slow to anger. There's nothing wrong with righteous anger. I know this as a Christian. It is righteous to be angry at evil, but the Bible also tells us to be slow to anger, to be slow to get to that place. And I think that's probably because you want to be angry at the right things. And I don't anyway. I don't want my anger to overwhelm and overshadow what I'm trying to say and make it so that some people can't hear me. And so I did that prayer. I'm still probably going to get angry, but hopefully it will be moderated a bit. Thank you, God. I hope it's moderated a bit. Also, if you're a regular here at Deprogrammed, welcome. I see a lot of you in the chat. Hold on to your hat, Keri. Yeah, I'm holding on to it. Therese, hey Therese, I see a lot of regulars. Hey, I was infuriated when this came out, and I'm trying to get over it. Oh, you and me both, girl. You and me both. Righteous anger, though, and like I said, I'm trying to moderate it because I don't want my words to be overshadowed by the emotion. If you're a regular here, you know I rarely curse on air because it bothers some people, and I don't want them to be bothered. I don't want them to turn off and not be able to hear what I'm saying. And also, I think people overuse curse words as crutches, and they're used too frequently. So I have found that when I do curse, it actually seems to mean a lot more because people are like, wow, I can tell she's mad. She said that word. I've allotted myself 2 F words today. I'm just telling you, if you have little ears in the room, there might be 2 F words. I'm not going to go over the limit, but I cannot. Today's topic is just it's got me. It's got me. Okay. Don't curse, says Mr. Generation. Okay. Deep breaths, says Adam World. Deep breaths. Okay, welcome. So we're going to talk about in the news, Chris Cuomo, notorious COVID propagandist, a complete propaganda for the evil machine, is now eating crow. Although I should say he's going back on several things he said. I don't know if he's eating crow. I'll let you be the judge of that. We're going to look at some clips. He doesn't seem to be coming from a place of humility. He does not seem to be apologetic. He does not seem to be taking responsibility for his part in it. Because let's be clear, he wasn't just someone who fell for the propaganda himself and went along and made his own choices, based on his opinion of whatever research he did. He was someone who pushed the vaccine. He pushed masks, and he shamed people. He bullied people. He coerced people. He is the reason. He is part of the reason that so many regular Americans took the vaccine. He's part of the reason. He was part of the animus against us, the unvaccinated. Never took the jab. And you know what? I'm tired of censoring myself. If you're new here, if you're on the left, if you're like, what is this girl Keri about? Welcome. I'm glad you're here. I regularly have people from the left who come and watch my show. Some have become longtime community members. Welcome. I ask that you stay with us today as we go through this topic, because I know a lot of you bought into this. You listen to people like Chris Cuomo. You let people like him shape your opinions for you. You let the machine shape your opinions for you. And some of you I've heard from you. I've heard from people who say, "Keri, I got the jab and I have this injury and or I have this or I regret it." And I feel for you. And I hope that most of you took it don't have any injuries. I hope that it doesn't turn out to be the case that everyone experiences something. I hope that's not the case. But I'll say if you're new here and you're not aware, because I've talked with some of you and you're not aware, YouTube censors this topic. They've been censoring it for years. Those of us who are regularly doing podcasts have come up with we've had to come up with a whole second language and lingo to be able to talk about these things. Most people won't even talk about COVID on YouTube anymore because the video get taken down, you'll get a strike, you won't be able to stream for 30 days. And some channels have been permanently banned. I had a video taken down during the height of this, when I interviewed people, many of whom worked in the medical industry themselves, medical professions. I interviewed people whose jobs were trying to coerce them into getting the vaccine. And some of them chose to remain anonymous. We didn't show their face. We had a roundtable discussion about the choice they were faced with: lose your job if you don't take this. And some of them, one guy, his doctor had advised him not to take it because he already had a pre-existing blood clotting disorder. And these vaccines, newsflash, we're not supposed to say this on YouTube, but I'm sick of censoring myself. There has been some evidence that shows that some of the vaccines cause blood clotting. This is now in the mainstream media, so I'm taking it that I'm hoping I can talk about it now, YouTube. His doctor had advised him not to take it because he already had a pre-existing blood clotting disorder, and yet his job was still trying to force him. They were trying to intervene and tell him what kind of medical decision he needed to make for himself. And you know what happened when I did that roundtable discussion with these people? YouTube took the video down. This was on my old channel, and I got a 30-day strike for even talking to people. I had another video removed because a guest was talking about a book he wrote, not about COVID, not about actual things that were happening, but the similarities to a book he had written about the potential for problems with pregnancy and with women's menstrual cycles. He kind of pointed out this comparison because at the time there were lots of women talking about, hey, the vaccine is, I think it may have caused issues with my menstrual cycle. And we weren't allowed to talk about that either. The video got taken down. You weren't allowed to ask questions. If you're on the left, you may not know this. I've talked to many of you who don't. You don't know this. On Facebook, I had a post taken down. It was a scientific study that I shared. And it was removed, and I got a notice from Facebook telling me, check the new terms of service. We've updated it and your post violates it now. And I'm thinking, how could it violate it? This is a scientific study. This is evidence. This is people can go look at the study. It's not an opinion. Okay. I went and looked at the new terms of service, and they had updated it to say that now Facebook would be removing anything, even if it was factual, even if it was factual, if it might cause vaccine hesitancy. That was their phrase. So even if it was true, even if it was science, even if it was a fact or a study, Facebook was censoring these posts. I had it happen to me. I know it happened to tens of thousands of others. There were doctors and scientists who were banned from Twitter. Most of them have since been reinstated. They've done interviews about it. Go look this up. Those of you who were in the cocoon, in the little shelter of mainstream corporate media and government propaganda, you didn't know this stuff was happening. They told you, hey, those are all crazy right-wingers. Don't listen to them. You were played. You were massively played. You were conned. And I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm sorry. But I'm gonna tell you now, some of you, not all of you, I know not all of you, but some of you played a part of it, like Chris Cuomo. Some of you became monsters. Not all of you, I know. Some of you became monsters. Now, if you didn't engage in this behavior, I'm not talking to you. Obviously, I'm talking to the ones who did. If you didn't engage in it, if you went along with it, if you believed it, if you got suckered, but you didn't pile on and you didn't shame others and you didn't bully, I'm not talking to you, and you should be able to hear the righteous anger that many of us have for those who did that. We had to listen to people scream at us out in public, going about our business at grocery stores, for not wearing a mask. I'm sorry, your mask didn't do crap. I'm gonna say that here on YouTube now too. We read the studies, you didn't. I wore a mask before most of you Covidians ever did because I was following the news at the very beginning when Trump was still in office. You may not even remember this because you weren't paying attention. At the very beginning, the mainstream news was saying, "Poo-poo, don't listen to these right wingers talking about COVID. COVID's just a cold." That's what the media was saying. They were saying, "COVID's just a cold, and these right wingers want you to think there's something scary happening in China and don't pay attention." I was paying attention before we knew much about it, but we knew that it might be coming to the US soon. I went and got a mask before any of you people were wearing it. Then I started reading the studies about the efficacy of the mask. Oh, wait a minute. They don't do anything. Now this has become some massive psyop where people are conditioned to wear this thing, and some people are still so mentally messed up with it. You still see them wearing these things out and about. God bless them. We were shamed for actually reading the science. That was the funny part is you guys were talking about the science, and we knew that you hadn't read anything. We listened quietly while you called us grandma killers, while you swallowed hook, line, and sinker everything they said. The media at the beginning was saying, "This is just a right-wing thing. Don't listen. It's not. It's just" there were headlines. We've covered them on this show before. Headlines where they were like, "It's just a cold. Don't listen. It's just Trump." Remember Biden called Trump a xenophobe because Trump took it seriously and said, "Okay, I'm gonna ban international travel from China." And Nancy Pelosi and Biden and all these Democrats just took it as an opportunity to bash on him. No matter what he did, they're gonna bash, right? So they come out and say, "He's a racist, he's a xenophobe, he's shutting down travel from China. Why is he doing that? He's a racist." Remember Pelosi was like, "Come on down to Chinatown. We're gonna have a big old party. Don't listen. Don't wear the mask. Don't." He just hates Chinese people. Crazy, crazy. That's how it was at the beginning. We remember. You may not remember. Yes, Ninja Kitty. I remember. Remember Nancy Pelosi in Chinatown. Yeah, I do. I certainly do. Then the puppet masters, the media, the government, big pharma turned on a dime. Turned on a dime. Suddenly, they went full hog in the other direction. You must do this. You must wear the mask. You must get the vaccine. Remember they were calling it Trump's vaccine at first. Biden said he wouldn't put that in his arm. Then it's, "Oh, now you have to take it or you're a grandma killer. You have to wear this." Fauci lied. He's on camera lying. He was on camera. I've played those clips before saying the mask, telling Americans, "Don't wear it. It's not gonna do anything." He said this. Fauci did. Then he changed on a dime when the whole machine turned and went in the other direction. He went with it. Suddenly he's saying, "You gotta wear the mask or you're an evil person," and then what did he say to excuse lying? He did interviews where he said, "Well, I did lie." He essentially said, "I did lie, but it was just because I thought we might run out of masks and we needed it. And so I was trying to, but now I'm being honest. Now I'm telling you, you really have to wear it." That's not true. We had his private emails. His private emails came out with friends who emailed him. Remember his friend who emailed him and said, "Hey," at that time she was like, "Should I wear this or not?" And he told her not. He told her it didn't do anything. That was in a private email. If he really believed in them the whole time, which is the lie he wanted us to buy, but he was just lying at first because he thought we might run out of them. You don't think he would tell his good friend? You don't think he would spare her one mask? Like, come on. How gullible are you? What they did with ivermectin, heads should roll. This is a drug that has won the Nobel Prize for treating humans. You may not know that if you're so plugged into the machine, all you heard was the massive propaganda of horse medicine, horse medicine, horse medicine. You're so gullible. I took ivermectin. My husband took ivermectin. Never got the jab. Ivermectin helped us. It helped thousands of people. You know what you did though by demonizing it that way, by piling on people who took this drug that's been used on humans for decades? No, there's no patent on it. They weren't making money on it. That might be your first clue as to why they wanted to push people away from it as a possible treatment. The CDC put out a tweet, which now, as a result of a lawsuit, they've been forced to remove their most popular tweet of all time, where they were making fun of Americans who took ivermectin. They made it so hard to get ivermectin, pharmacies were refusing to fill it, even if somebody had a script from a doctor. We had to go back channels. We had to go there were doctors who set up these sort of underground networks. We would go to hippie compound pharmacies, progressive, leftist. If you bought into this lie that this was a left-right thing, I'm sorry, again, bamboozled. You got bamboozled. Some of my most vocal friends who were against this swindling of the American people were those who are on the left who've always been critical of big pharma and who aren't fickle tribalist leftists who just go wherever they're told. In Georgetown, Texas, I have friends who are on the left who are real progressives, who are awake, who were out there protesting the mask mandates every weekend. That's a small percentage of people who go by principles and use their own brain and use reasoning and don't just go wherever the media machine and the government tell them to go. Oh, the left is doing this, the right is doing this. I better get with my tribe. We'll see how far things have come if this video gets removed, because I'm no holds barred today. If this gets taken down, I guess we haven't come that far yet. But I figure since Chris Cuomo is now talking about vaccine injuries, he's now admitting someone who shamed ivermectin, shamed people who had to go to great lengths to get it. He's now he's admitting he's taking ivermectin now. He says he has a vaccine injury now. So if Chris Cuomo, mouthpiece for the machine, is saying this, I assume we can all speak about it now. Let's start with this. I want you to remember what they did to us, okay? Those of you who were a part of it, if you participated, I'm gonna tell you something. I mentioned this book a lot. I read this book because Jordan Peterson recommended it. It was part of our book club. It's called Ordinary Men by Christopher Browning. You should go read this book. Um, This is a book about a reserve police battalion in Poland during the Holocaust. These guys were ordinary men, that's why it's called Ordinary Men. They were reserve police officers, so they had other real jobs like doctors, dentists, what have you, carpenters. They were called up and they ended up the orders they got, they ended up being a part of some of the most inhumane, evil, atrocious acts against humans, against their fellow humans, against Jewish people. And this book is a study of the psychology of those men. It followed them. It's so fascinating. It's a study of why ordinary, good, supposedly good people do evil, the psychology of man. You're probably, let's say you're on the left, you went along with this COVID propaganda, you probably think you're a good person. Let me tell you something. You're an ordinary man. If you ever wondered what you would have done during previous times of evil in history, you got an answer during the COVID years of what you would do, of what you're capable of what you will do when you believe you're on the right side. When evil forces manipulate you, feed you propaganda, whip you up with emotion, you will set against your common man. Some of you, you will set against your common man. You'll do all kinds of evil. I'm not talking about all of you. Again, I'm talking about some of you. Some of you loved it. Some of you loved it. Just like in this book, there was a percentage of these guys who loved it. Turns out they were psychopaths. They got off on it. Small percentage, but still. There were other guys in this book, didn't love it, but they went along with it. They were corrupted. They went along with it. So probably a larger group. You might be in that group. You probably felt guilty about it. Maybe you feel guilty about it now, but you went along with it. Maybe you didn't go along with it. Maybe you didn't join pile-ons and shaming, but you were quiet and you didn't say anything about it. That's a third type of person. I've been that person before about other things in my past. I've been that person who was a coward. So maybe you learned something about yourself during those years. I learned a lot about my fellow humans. I'll tell you before we go to this clip, I've mentioned it many times. It's so important that you know about this study because it explains so much about human nature and about your nature and my nature. The Ash conformity experiment, look it up. 1950s is when they started doing it. The results of that study show that approximately as many as 75% of people will go along with anything. They'll just conform. I saw the results of that in real time. Many of you in the chat saw this in real time during the COVID years. We saw it. We experienced it. Those of us who didn't go along, we experienced it. I tried to have fun with it. I would troll people, with my mask hijinks. Some of you know that. I had different ridiculous masks I would wear just to try and make people laugh and just to point out the absurdity of what we were going through, what we were all going through. I had my Batman mask that I would wear, so it just covered my eyes. I had different kind of I tried to have fun with it. The absurdity of it. But I know people who lost their jobs because their conviction was greater than anything that these evildoers could do to them. They lost their jobs. Some people who lost their businesses. I've interviewed people, a grandmother who went to prison for operating her coffee shop. We allowed collectively authoritarianism to reign during the COVID years, unchecked. Meanwhile, most of you guys who were brainwashed in that propaganda bubble running around talking about Nazis while you're behaving like Nazis. Understand what fascism is. You use that word all the time. Look it up. Understand what authoritarianism is. Look it up. You're an adult human being. Respect yourself enough not to be used as a puppet and a tool by psychopathic elitists. Are you so easily manipulated? All they have to do is dangle right-left dichotomy to you. Oh, the right's doing this, the left's doing this, and boom, off you go to your side. Don't be that. Don't be that kind of person. Easily manipulated. I meet you guys all the time. I hear from you all the time in comments. I can tell immediately how brainwashed you are when you come into my comments and you call me a right winger or whatever. And I'm like, that person's so locked in the matrix. Like, God bless them. You know, how do you bumbling through life with your freaking blinders on? That's all it takes. They just put the little right left glasses on you and you're just out there like, that person's saying something that's not mainstream. Oh, right winger. You're ridiculous. I'm going to show you a clip from Jimmy Dore. He's on the left. I greatly respect Jimmy Dore. He's not asleep like you. He gets called right winger too. He's a progressive. Wake up, people. Wake up. The people who lied to you are now backtracking. Chris Cuomo is now backtracking. He's going back on every freaking lie he sold you. If that doesn't wake you up, I don't know what will. Let's look at a little trip down memory lane. I'm gonna make this larger. Let's see. Hold on one second. I need this little breather. I need this little breather. Some of you do too. Here, let's get the volume on. Now, I don't know who made this compilation, but this was making the rounds a year or two ago. Over a year ago, I first saw this. Here we go.
When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other.
You are the unvaccinated. You are the problem. It is the unvaccinated who are the problem, period, end of story.
The only people that you can blame, this isn't shaming, this is the truth. Maybe they should be shamed, are the unvaccinated.
It's time to start blaming the unvaccinated folks, not the regular folks.
Anyone you came into contact with will blame you, as will the rest of us who have done the right thing by getting vaccinated.
Because frankly, we know that we can't trust the unvaccinated.
I think it's time to get our moral house in order, Anderson. It's the unvaccinated who are the threat.
All of us vaccinated folks are going to start wearing masks to protect the unvaccinated folks. It's called a Christian value.
Basically punishing the vaccinated for the sins of the unvaccinated.
People are not behaving honorably. The unvaccinated are basically saying, well, it's open season for me. I can do whatever I want as well.
The unvaccinated are basically beating their breasts, running around the country saying, we don't care, we're living free, and so forth.
We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin.
The unvaccinated, a group that includes children and people acting like children. And the rest of us are starting to get pissed off.
The vaccinated feel the unvaccinated are making me upset or angry.
This is not about freedom or personal choice.
Well, my freedom is being kind of disturbed here. No. Screw your freedom.
The other day, Howard Stern weighed in with a much different approach. Take a look.
When are we going to stop putting up with the idiots in this country and just say, it's mandatory to get vaccinated? Their freedom.
But you're treading on our freedom and you're making other people sick, and really you're killing other people.
The anti-vaxxers, they seem to have a thing for death and home remedies.
The anti-maskers turned anti-vaxxers are not just putting their own lives at risk. If that was the issue, we could just say that we can watch them compete to win place or show in the Darwin Awards.
We have to start doing things for the greater good of society. and not for idiots who think that they can do their own research.
And don't get me started on the lunatics who won't take any of the COVID vaccines.
Life is too short to be an ass. Life is way too short to be ignorant of the promise of something that is helping people worldwide.
Maybe you're doing it because you're disconnected or disorganized. Maybe you have some sympathetic psychological reasons. But maybe you're just being antisocial.
Oh, you can't shame them. You can't call them stupid. You can't call them silly. Yes, they are.
Those who are not vaccinated will end up paying the price.
The unvaccinated should be taxed. They should pay more for healthcare.
We need to start looking at the choice to remain unvaccinated the same as we look at driving while intoxicated.
We're going to see, and I've said, almost two types of America.
Dr. Fauci said that if hospitals get any more overcrowded, they're going to have to make some very tough choices about who gets an ICU bed. That choice doesn't seem so tough to me. Vaccinated person having a heart attack, yes, come right on in. We'll take care of you. Unvaccinated guy who gobbled horse goo, rest in peace, Wheezy.
Pointing back to the unvaccinated who are really creating a problem in this country, every death that we are seeing from COVID could have been prevented.
Literally, the only people dying are the unvaccinated. And for those of you spreading misinformation, shame on you. Shame on you. I don't know how some of you sleep at night.
Ooh, take a breather with me. My blood pressure is rising. What you just saw in that compilation is just a short compilation of what we lived through. And first of all, those of you who are unvaccinated, congratulations. We lived through and survived and came out the other side, withstood the biggest most expensive propaganda campaign in our lifetime. It's bigger than the child sterilization mutilation campaign. Although that is probably approaching epic proportions. It will be approaching similar proportions soon. But we lived through that and it still didn't work on us. And so congratulations. What you just saw was a bunch of ordinary men, people who allow themselves to become monsters. Now, some of those people are probably misguided. Others, I think, are thoroughly evil and knew what they were doing and didn't care. Or they're the kind of people who engage in sociopathic, narcissistic projection. Listen to the number of projections they did. They called us selfish. They called us evil, that we should die. Jimmy, what's his name? Kimmel talking about don't give hospital beds to people who are unvaccinated, wishing upon us death. That happened many times to me, and I'm sure to those of you in the chat. They called us stupid, which again, projection. You guys are idiots if you fell for this stuff. Don Lemonhead talking about mocking. By the way, that's that gleeful mocking. That's also a cluster B trait. It's a demonic kind of trait. It's a demon-like thing where they're like, oh, doing your own research. You can see the evil in a person's countenance and hear it in their soul and their voice when they talk to you like that. If you've grown up with a cluster B person, if you've ever been around someone who has some of those traits, like narcissistic, sociopathic, psychopathic, borderline personality, or histrionic personality disorder, that will be familiar to you. That as will the projection. That's their number one tactic, which is to accuse you of the very things that they are. They were stupid, so they called us stupid. They mocked doing research, which they put down. Who was it? Was it Colbert? It was Colbert that was insulting people who would not give the vax to their children. He said children are there are some children included in this group and people who are acting like children. If you fell for this stuff and you got the vax, like I said, I'm sorry. And I hope nothing bad happens to you. And by the way, my dad, my family, my parents took it. If I were in a group that was actually, we were actually reading the studies. Do you guys understand that? Those of you who talked about the science and were wielding that around like a sword, but you had never read a single freaking study. You didn't even know there were doctors and scientists being banned. You had no idea what was going on. You were just being led around like a farm animal on a leash. I was reading the studies. If I were in a group with comorbidities where I was one of the groups that might be at risk, like if I were obese, if I were elderly, I might have made a different decision weighing those options. I might have taken an untested vaccine. And yes, I'm saying it on YouTube, untested. You don't have to be Einstein or a genius or a doctor yourself to understand how time works. Do you understand how time works? This was new, brand new. There was no time for longitudinal studies. So every time they told you there were going to be no side effects and stuff, that's a lie. And you don't have to be a genius to know that, because there's no time allowed. There was not enough time for a longitudinal study. You understand that, right? Do you understand how time works? But even with the lack of longitudinal studies, knowing what the possible side effects would be, if I were in one of those groups with comorbidities, if I were elderly or infirm or had some other disease, if I were frail, if I were obese, I might have taken it. I don't know. But I wasn't in those groups, and there's no freaking way I was taking it. If you took it, I feel for you. But if you gave it to your children, I think you failed. I think you failed in your most important responsibility on this earth. This job, your job is to protect your children. Now, parents fail all the time. People make mistakes all the time. We're only human. I'm not saying it's nothing you can't come back from. I'm not saying it's unforgivable. I'm just saying at some point you need to recognize that you allowed this propaganda. You need to recognize that and own it and accept responsibility so you don't fail at your job as a parent again. If you were looking at the studies, if you were looking at the data, kids were not affected. And if you allowed this to cause you to make that choice for your kid, like, you need to do some serious soul reckoning. It's not unforgivable. It's not, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, stop. Take a moment. Do some evaluating. Look at all the stuff we're allowed to say now, what the mainstream media is admitting to now. Okay, I'm gonna go through a couple of these super chats and then we're gonna watch Chris Cuomo go eat all of his words. First we're gonna watch him with Don Lemonhead mocking ivermectin, calling people evil for not taking it, and then we're gonna look at what he's saying today, which is that he's vaccine injured and he's taking ivermectin now, and he was wrong, but it's not his fault. Okay. Thank you for the super chat. Deranged Lunatic, DL for $1.99. I did not buy into the whole COVID BS. Good for you. Good for you. Look, the people who didn't fall for it, I'll say this. Like I said, we withstood the biggest, most expensive propaganda campaign in our lifetime. And I know for sure that I probably am going to, if you're in this group, there's people jokingly call it pure blood. If you're a pure blood, if you're unvaccinated though, seriously, without even knowing you, I know that I probably trust you more than the average person. You're in that small group of people who don't fail the Ash conformity experiment. It really took cojones to withstand that kind of propaganda and that kind of shame and social pressure and, some people losing their jobs, even going to jail. So congratulations. I hope you learned a lot about people. I did. CJ for $5, thank you, says zero forgiveness for Chris Cuomo. When he was in a position of influence, him and his brother supported the COVID hysteria and fear mongering. Forgiveness is up to you. Now I'm not as hardline as some of my friends. I've said this before. I do believe in forgiveness and I try to get there, but I'm human and it takes me a while. And there are some people in my life I've forgiven, um and here's how you can know, I think, if you don't know. My pastor talked about Church on the Square, Georgetown, Texas, Bradley Helgerson, just to give him a little plug. He gave a sermon once about forgiveness and how forgiveness is like erasing a debt that someone owes you. Like if someone breaks into your house and steals your laptop, it's like going to them and saying, look, I forgive you. You don't have to pay it back. You don't have to give me the laptop back. And that's how I evaluate if I've actually achieved forgiveness or not. Because sometimes if you haven't achieved forgiveness yet, I know this because there's many I have not forgiven yet. No, I have not forgiven Chris Cuomo. I think he owes, you have that feeling of like you're owed something. I'm owed an apology. I'm owed an acknowledgement that you did this. I'm owed this. I'm owed that. And so when you can let go of that, which is what I aim for, that's forgiveness. I'm not going to judge anyone for if they forgive or not. That's your own personal path. I completely understand this sentiment, CJ. Completely. Thank you for the super chat. Randy's here. Randy Wallen for $5. Hey, Randy. Give him hell, Keri. Hey, Randy, I apologize. I'm going to have probably 2 curse words today, just so you know. I've allotted myself that many. JB05 for $5. Thank you for the super chat. It says, I'll never forget how nasty a lot of small businesses were about masks in my blue area. I used to try and support them and not anymore. Yeah, man. There's a coffee shop in Georgetown I won't go to anymore because they were such mask authoritarians. Oh gosh, what's the name of it? I'm going to name it. So the one I do go to, if you're in Georgetown, Texas, I go on the square, I go to Black Sugar. Black Sugar, they were great. They never told, I would test which places, how they enforced or not, just by going in without it. And if they told me to wear it, then I would know, okay, this place enforces it. Black Sugar was great. They let you make your own decisions. They never forced it on me. So I go to Black Sugar. That other one, gosh, what's it called? I don't even go there anymore. That's why I can't remember the name of it. It's the popular one and they have a chain. I got to name them. So let me find this. I didn't think I would talk about them today. Lamppost Coffee on Georgetown, Texas, mask authoritarians. And so they were one of the places I trolled. It was because again, insulting that I shouldn't be able to make my own medical decision about whether I'm wearing a mask or not. You're not going to serve me if I'm not wearing it. Give me a break. So when I first found this out about them, then I would go in there without the mask and they got to know me. I would go in there and they would be like, Keri, get out. And I would be like, what? And I'll be like, I'm just going to the bathroom. Don't worry. I'm not getting a coffee. Don't worry. And I would just keep walking. And they're like, get out. I'm like, no, it's fine. I'm just going to the bathroom. And then I would go in their bathroom and then leave. I just liked, it was kind of like real life trolling, One time I went in there without a mask. It was 2 girls behind the counter. And I was like, I had a whole conversation with them about pro-choice. I was like, so are your owners pro-choice? Or because it doesn't seem like they are. And they never heard, because young people and people who are indoctrinated, they think that means pro-abortion, because it does. I learned during COVID years, it means pro-abortion. I thought pro-choice. I used to think, I was naive enough. I got the wool pulled over my eyes. I thought they actually believed in bodily autonomy. They actually believe the government should not have a right to tell you what to do with your body, but they don't. They believe the government should be able to tell you to wear a mask or take a vaccine or whatever and punish you if you don't. That's not pro-choice. So that means you're just pro-abortion, right? So yeah, I had my fun with that place, but I will not buy coffee from them. Natalie. Hey, Natalie. She says, Keri was the only one who wrote me back when I sent her my letter of resignation from Whole Foods Market when I would not put up with how they shamed the unvaxxed. I will never forget you. Girl, thank you for this. I I don't always have time to read everything that people send me. That's not a humble brag. That's just a matter of fact. And sometimes I just avoid my inboxes because it's just too many messages, and I know I don't have the time that they deserve. So I'd rather not read them than not be able to give them the time that they deserve. And I am glad that I read yours though. And look, I made some really great friends during the COVID years. I hope you did too. And I'm not sure what you're up to now, but I hope it's wonderful and that people like you, without even knowing you personally, other than that interaction, like I know I can trust you because you're going to stand by your convictions and you're going to stand by your principles and you're going to stand by truth no matter what they throw at you. And this is not a left-right thing. Again, this is just about whether you're a principled person or not. Thank you, Natalie. Alex Lindstrom for $4.99. Thank you. Says, I don't think I just follow the right on everything, but I'm sure people I know would say I am. Oh yeah, Alex. Well, they say that about me too. Don't worry. The thing is, if you are the kind of person who asks yourself, wait a minute, am I just following what the right's doing on this issue? Then you're good. Because at least you're asking the question. The people who just follow never ask themselves the question. They just follow. They just follow. So it's good. You should. I regularly interrogate myself. You should regularly interrogate yourself about, am I just going along with a tribe on this? Or is this what I think? Like, I left a cult. I left a tribe. I left the woke tribe. I don't ever want to fall in with another tribe. Not in that way, where I just blindly follow. The only person I blindly follow is God. And I wouldn't say it's entirely blindly. I'm sure people on the outside would say that. But that's it. I'm going to follow God. I'm going to follow my husband as long as he's in line with God. I'm not in it part of any political party anymore. You know, I'm going to vote for the person I think is the best vote in each individual case. And I'm going to interrogate myself to try and keep myself from falling into something like that again. So just keep doing that and don't pay any mind what people say about you. They say all kinds of things about me. John says mass formation psychosis. Yep, that's exactly what was happening. Micah should be in prison. Marby Dog, I think so many of these people should be in prison. We should have Nuremberg style trials, the people who participate in the propaganda, because you know what? Again, projection. They called us grandma killers. It is not hyperbolic to say that some of them have blood on their hands, because I know people who have died where it's questionable if the vaccine had something to do with it. Possibly, even this week, I heard of another death where the person was thought that there was vaccine injury, and they're just off the hook. I'm gonna show you an article. They made sure that you couldn't sue Big Pharma. We tried to tell you guys this back then. We tried to warn you back then. This is one of the reasons that many of us who were trying to post and were getting censored and trying to find creative ways to post so we could get this information out. We tried to tell you back then. They put through this emergency order to shield the vaccine companies, Big Pharma, from any lawsuits. And we were saying, guys, why are you taking this? It hasn't been around long enough for longitudinal studies. You have no idea what the side effects are. Meanwhile, we're looking at COVID and we're seeing which groups are most susceptible, and you're not in one of these susceptible groups, or the ones that it's going to hit very hard. Why are you can't sue them if there are side effects? Look at this. This was from 2020. Headline CNBC: you can't sue Pfizer or Moderna if you have severe COVID vaccine side effects. The government likely won't compensate you for damages either. You guys who were in the bubble may not even know this because you weren't reading our post, because you were there. You thought we were all right wingers, or you bought into the right left stuff where you don't listen to people who are maybe some of us saying this in your life are right wingers. That's okay too. It's weird how much you hate people for being in a different political party than you. But some of us were not. And you wrote us off too. You wrote people like Jimmy Dore off. Look, We shared this information back then, and we tried to. It got censored under the PrEP Act. Companies like Pfizer and Moderna have total immunity from liability if something unintentionally goes wrong with their vaccines. A little-known government program provides benefits to people who can prove they suffered serious injury from a vaccine, which, by the way, they made it very hard to do. That program rarely pays, covering just 29 claims over the last decade. If you experience severe side effects after getting a COVID vaccine, lawyers tell CNBC there's basically no one to blame in a U.S. court of law. The federal government has granted companies like Pfizer and Moderna immunity from liability. Immunity if something unintentionally goes wrong with their vaccines. Quote, it is very rare for a blanket immunity law to be passed, end quote, said Roj Dunn, a Dallas labor and employment attorney. Quote, pharmaceutical companies typically are not offered much liability protection under the law, nor should they be. You also can't sue the FDA for authorizing this vaccine for emergency use. See, this is how they got around it, because they said it was emergency use. We were telling you this back then. Nor can you hold your employer accountable if they mandate it. So even if your job forced it on you, you can't even sue them. Nor can you hold your employer accountable if they mandate inoculation as condition of employment. Congress created a fund specifically to help cover lost wages and out-of-pocket medical expenses for people who've been irreparably harmed by a, quote, covered countermeasure, such as a vaccine, but it's difficult to use and it rarely pays. Attorneys say it's compensated less than 6% of the claims filed in the last decade. In February, this was 2020, by the way, in February 2020, Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar invoked the Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act, PrEP. The 2005 law empowers the HHS secretary to provide legal protection to companies making or distributing critical medical supplies such as vaccines and treatments, unless there's, quote, willful misconduct, end quote, by the company. This protection lasts until 2024. That means for the next 4 years, these companies cannot be sued for money damages in court over injuries related to the administration or use of products to treat or protect against COVID. They specifically carved out these COVID vaccines and said the American people cannot sue Big Pharma if they get injured, and they cannot sue their employer if their employer mandates it. Crazy, right? This isn't new information, though. That's the thing. Chris Cuomo and all these people, this is part of the reason a lot of us are infuriated, is because we were talking about this. We were censored for talking about this. People have been punished. People have been lost their YouTube channels. They've lost their Facebook profiles for talking about this. Doctors are censored. Doctors were taken off Twitter for talking about this stuff. And now when they're admitting all this and they're coming out, and Chris Cuomo and people like him are saying, oh, I'm vaccine injured. Oh, New York Times just ran a huge profile on vaccine injured people. Oh, I guess we can talk about it now, right? And you know the tone they're taking? They're not saying, well, maybe, with humility, we were wrong. We should have listened. Maybe we shouldn't have been so hasty to censor people and to shame people and bully them. That's not the tone they're taking. The tone they're taking is, how could we have known? This is all new information. Oh, if only someone had told us that we hadn't tried to censor. It's crazy. Helena Colbert, another Pfizer shill. Yep. Stern too. Stern's he's COVID crazy. That dude's gone off the deep end, and now he's in a total establishment shill. Randy Wallen for $5. Thank you, Randy. Says paid shills. Yes. Drug companies dominate news advertising, which gives them control of content. Yes. Stop watching mainstream media if you want to protect yourself. The mainstream media, Randy is so right. Let me tell you, if you're coming to this late, if you took the vax, like I said, I've talked to many of you. I feel for you. If you regret it, if you've been injured, it doesn't matter. If you were bamboozled, I am sorry. It takes humility and strength of character to say, I was wrong. I got fooled. There's nothing wrong with that. I have no beef with people. You know, we were talking about forgiveness. I have no beef with people. You owe me no debt at all. I don't need an apology from you if you recognize I got bamboozled and I was wrong. Like, I am sorry. I feel for you. And what I would say to you is what Randy's saying. Unplug. Now is the time. If you recognize that, you need to start asking yourself, what else have I been fooled about? The election. What else is it possibly that I am not aware of all the information because of censorship, because this machine of government and corporations and celebrities, the cathedral, some of us call it. What else am I not aware of because the cathedral has shaped what I believe to be true? You start asking yourself that. And you don't have to jump into some other tribe. You'll probably get called names. People will accuse you of being a right winger and all kinds of things for asking questions, but just start asking questions. You need to be a self-sufficient, independent, thinking, reasonable, rational human being. And if you have kids, doubly so, because it's your job to protect them. And you should not be ingesting propaganda regularly except to critique it. I don't watch mainstream media except to critique it. I watch it in clips like we're about to do today. It's poison. Jack Roberts for $10. Thank you for the super chat. Says, the Covidiots threatened our child custody. I know of someone whose ex-spouse demanded to know their vax status and their own divorce lawyer advising to get the vax or risk losing visitation rights. This breaks my heart. I read stories about this at the time. Jack, you're so right. I know there were news articles of people who this was happening to them. Get the vax or you can't see your kid. They did unspeakable things to fellow Americans. People did unspeakable things to Americans. And in other countries too. I know of people watching in Germany and the Netherlands, and hello to my based progressive friends in the Netherlands. If you're watching, I met a whole community of artists, progressives, people on the left who are completely based and awake, because then again, this is not a right left thing. And they woke up because of what happened with COVID in their country. Like, we went through some crazy times. We're still reeling from it. We're still coming out of it. Ken Lipson, thank you for the super chat for $5. Says, I actually found a bunch of new places based on who tried to get me to wear a mask. Now I love supporting the new businesses. Me too. Me too. That's why I only go to Black Sugar Coffee in Georgetown now. And because I used to go to the other one. I used to go to Lamppost. Not anymore. Patriotic Gestalt, thank you for the super chat. Thanks for remembering. I tend to forget facts, but I remember the emotions. Oh, Gestalt, I'm same. That's funny. We're kind of similar people. I remember the feelings of things. I forget facts. That's also why sometimes I do forgive very easily, like for small things, of course. But most of the time it's because I just forgot what happened. So, but I remember the feeling of something. But yeah, I'm like you. So that's why we're going through this, because I want to remember that clip. Oh man, of just propaganda after propaganda after propaganda, insulting and shaming and bullying and dehumanizing the unvaccinated. Ooh, keep that bookmarked and watch that when you need to remember what they did to us. Okay, let's look at. We're going to look now at some of the stuff Chris Cuomo is saying. Now, several channels have covered it, and he was also recently interviewed. So I'll start with, let's see. Let me get this one up. Let's start with this one where he sort of admits that Joe Rogan was right. Remember, they were all making fun of Joe Rogan for taking ivermectin. You guys who were not awake when we were, let's say maybe you're newly awake and you're here, but you fell for part of this. You won't know like what we had to go through to get ivermectin because you weren't doing it. But those in the chat who know, you know. And there were some states where you couldn't get it at all. And people, it was like old school. It was like underground railroad, kind of like, you know, people at your church or people at your, you know, your mom's group or your book club or whatever. Like we were like on the, it's kind of like getting raw milk, you know, like you're not supposed to, I got some raw milk for you. It was like that. It was like, we were trying to like, I got a doctor. He'll write you a script. You got to go to this hippie pharmacy. It's in the next state over. Okay. Buying for friends, you know, it was totally, if you're late to the party, just let me tell you, it was interesting times. Okay. But now they're like, now let's hear what Chris Cuomo has to say. Now, this is a clip from The Hill. And they did a good compilation here. So let me just start.
With Patrick Bet-David, the former CNN anchor and brother of former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, shared that he's now taking the same drug he used to make fun of. That's right. Let's watch.
I'll tell you something else that's going to get you a lot of hits. I am taking a, what do they call it? Like a regular dose, you know, whatever. They're trying to build up of ivermectin. Ivermectin was a boogeyman.
You're taking horse medicine? I'm kidding. The Ivermectin underground. That's what it was, man. I remember when I took it, I posted a picture and I was like, today I took some horse pills. And also I drank some horse water. It's called H2O. Horses drink it. It's for horses. I drank it too. OMG. And I took a horse aspirin. It's an aspirin. Horses take it. It's a horse pill too. Okay, wait. Sorry, I just had to laugh. He's saying horse medicine.
Ivermectin. Ivermectin was a boogeyman early on in COVID.
You couldn't talk about it.
That was wrong. We were given bad information about ivermectin. The real question.
Pause. I'm going to have to pause this a lot. I'm trying to restrain myself from using up my 2 curse words now. He says that was wrong. He doesn't say I was wrong. He says that was wrong. Then he excuses himself from blame. He doesn't take responsibility. He says, we were given bad information. Pause. No, you gave bad information to the American people. You're a journalist. That comes with a greater responsibility. You have great influence. It comes with great power. It comes with great responsibility. Is that Spider-Man? You misled the American people. This wasn't hard information to find out. It wasn't hidden knowledge that ivermectin was safe and effective. It won a freaking Nobel Prize. You freaking moron. You're a journalist. You did this. You don't get to excuse yourself. Those moms and grandmas and people that you fooled, sure, they trusted you. They put their faith and trust in you because they thought you were a news reporter and a journalist. They thought your job was to do research. We did research. We're about to watch a clip of you bullying us. You did this. So fuck you and fuck the horse medicine pill lie that you wrote in on.
Question is, why? Everyone's going to say Joe Rogan was right. No, Joe Rogan was saying, yeah, he was right. But that's not what matters. What matters is the entire clinical community knew that ivermectin couldn't hurt you. They knew it, Patrick. I know they knew it. How do I know? Because now I'm doing nothing but talking to these clinicians who at the time were overwhelmed by COVID and they weren't saying anything.
Pause. You're talking to these clinicians. It's their fault. Oh, he's like, well, now I know ivermectin's safe and effective. Why? Because I'm talking to clinicians. They all knew. They all knew, but they weren't saying anything. You freaking liar. You liar. There were doctors who were losing their jobs. They were being fired. They were having to resign. They were bullied and shamed all over mainstream media by people like you. There's a storm raging outside. It's matching the storm in here. I've got, look, here's just one news story. Let's just pull up one of a doctor who lost her job. You could have talked to these clinicians and doctors back then, Chris Cuomo. You could have talked to them then. Sorry, that's not the right one. Give me 1 second. But you're a liar. Here we go. Look at this one. This one hits local. This is Texas. Suspended Texas doctor who promoted ivermectin as COVID treatment resigns from hospital. Dr. Mary Bowden was suspended from Houston Methodist Friday for, quote, spreading dangerous misinformation. She resigned this week. This brave doctor who was prescribing ivermectin and trying to get the word out and trying to actually treat her patients with something that won a Nobel Prize for its use in humans, not horses. Something that has been around for decades, been used in humans long enough for longitudinal studies, unlike this new and experimental vaccine. Again, remember how time works. You don't have to be Einstein. Time works in a linear fashion. Not enough time for those studies, but we've done plenty of studies on ivermectin to show it's safe. So she was trying this. There were plenty of doctors who were trying ivermectin on their patients and getting positive results. There were studies coming out. We were reading it. Why weren't you reading it, Chris Cuomo? You freaking lie and sit there and say, oh, but the doctors were all silent. They tricked me. You were a journalist. Look at this. Dr. Mary Bowden, the Texas doctor who had her privileges suspended last week by Houston Methodist for spreading, quote, dangerous misinformation about COVID-19 on social media, has resigned from the hospital. She called vaccine mandates, quote, wrong. They were wrong. They were immoral, authoritarian, unethical, not backed by science, undemocratic, against individual rights and liberties. We saw Arnold Schwarzenegger in that quote mocking people, talking about their freedom. Freedom's a real thing, dude. If it means nothing to you, then what the hell are you doing in America? You're going to mock people who are talking about something real and meaningful about freedom? Then don't expect anybody to believe you when you get up as a politician and you pay lip service to freedom later on, because we know it doesn't mean crap to you. We know it means nothing to you. Some of us actually do believe in medical freedom. Some of us actually believe in the freedom to be able to go out and make a living, operate small businesses, keep the money that we make through our labor, provide for our family, individual liberties and freedoms. That actually means a great deal to the founders of this country, and to many of us. You're going to mock it. She was right. She called vaccine mandates wrong. Quote, and she touted the controversial drug ivermectin. Controversial? It didn't become controversial until the cathedral decided to attack it and prevent people from being able to try that safe medication to see if it helped them. The whole machine turned against it overnight. And the funny thing is, those of you who mocked us for taking it, you thought you were so smart, and you couldn't have, your ass was showing. Like, you couldn't have outed yourself more completely as a dumbass. The ones, and again, I know it wasn't all of you, but the ones who were mocking it as horse medicine, that was like, immediately, I'm like, moron. Put it, another one for the moron basket. Another one for the moron basket. I don't have a problem with people. I'm not judging. I try not to make people feel bad for being dumb. It's nothing. It's not on you. IQ is like, it's like height. Why would don't make me feel bad for being short or someone for being tall or whatever. It's like, there shouldn't be a moral judgment on it, on being dumb or on being naive. But when you add arrogance to that, when you're dumb and arrogant, it's a different story. It's a different story. If you're ignorant, fine. Okay. We've all been ignorant, but if you're ignorant and arrogant, that's what the people making fun of ivermectin were, ignorant and arrogant. At that point, all bets are off. You're a moron. Okay. She touted the controversial drug ivermectin as a treatment for COVID-19 multiple times in her Twitter account, despite public health officials warning against it. This is just one doctor. One. I don't want to spend too much time on it. You, Chris Cuomo, are a journalist. You have a staff of people. You have a huge budget. You couldn't find any of these doctors at the time. We're supposed to believe that somehow this was elusive information. Elusive. I was fooled. The doctors didn't say anything. Thank you for the very generous super chat, Commissar General Mao. For $50. Thank you, says Keri. I love your show. I've been watching you since I saw your interview with Zuby in 2019. Oh, I love Zuby. Watched every episode of Unsafe Space. That was my old channel until you left. Haven't watched since. Carter always rubbed me the wrong way. Well, he didn't rub me the wrong way until it was too late. In retrospect, I should have had my eyes open a little sooner. Anyway, always rubbed me the wrong way, but I enjoyed your perspective. Thank you very much. Thank you for that message. And I appreciate you finding me. There's still people finding me from my old channel who didn't know what happened or where I went. So this is where I am, deprogrammed. And I appreciate you finding me here. Thank you. And for that very nice super chat. Fernando Nauman for $2.49. Thank you for the chat. Says a lot of people are still in a metaphysical trap. Yes. Yes, they are. Gosh. And thank you, Fernando, for reminding me, because I knew today I prayed. I was like, I've got to rein the anger in. I knew I was going to be angry, but I was just hoping it wasn't overwhelming. And thank you, because you're touching my heart right now. And I need to remember that. That a lot of these people were fooled, and some of them are still fooled. And I see them out and about still wearing a mask. Some people still putting a mask on their kids. And it's like, I could be angry, but I just feel sorry for them. This made some people crazy. Like legit mentally unwell. Randy, thank you, Randy. For $5, says emergency use authorization only allowed if other meds not available. That was the sole reason for ivermectin's destruction. Follow the money. Exactly. You could get ivermectin, for pennies. It was like, that's why they had to demonize it so that they could push through the emergency authorization, so that they could then say that you couldn't sue Big Pharma because it was emergency authorization. Randy, thanks for connecting those dots, because I'm a little angry today and a little in the feels. I'm trying to come out of it. So thank you for connecting those dots for people. Again, if you're new to this, if you're on the left, I'm sorry for yelling so much. I try to calm it down. If you're new to this, if you're just waking up, if you're not awake yet, if you're just curious, what is this crazy girl talking about? Here's the dots for you. He's connecting them. Go look up ivermectin yourself. Please, you're an adult. Trust yourself to do research. Don't let bullies like Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo mock research. Research is asking questions, is reading. You should be doing that. Go look up ivermectin. Look at how it won the Nobel Prize. Like, we're not lying to you. This was all known. Chris Cuomo's right when he says the entire medical establishment knew that ivermectin was safe and effective. They did. And the thing is, he was part of the machine that silenced and bullied and fired and censored the doctors who were speaking up, who became part of this ivermectin underground, trying to get it to people. Boggins and the Banshee for $4.99. Remember, Chris's brother was a saint governor of New York at the time. He was very dialed in. He cannot claim ignorance. Oh, no, he can't. Also, thank you for this. Also, you reminded me. Do you remember Chris Cuomo faked being quarantined with COVID? Now, I don't know if he had COVID or not, but I know for sure that he was not quarantined. He faked it. I covered this at the time. There were videos of him out on the street because he got into an altercation with a bicyclist. You remember this? And then later he taped this thing for CNN where he emerges from the basement after his quarantine. It was all propaganda. It was all fake. We can go back and watch that again today if you want. If you're on the left and you never saw this, go look it up. He was out on the street. People showed in real time that he was a liar. He was going about his daily life, and then he filmed this whole propaganda piece for CNN about like, oh, I'm emerging from the quarantine. I've been in the basement this whole time. What a faker. What a faker. My goodness. Pirate Thompson, give it up for our mods today. Pirate, don't put me in a timeout. I only used 2 curse words today. That's all I'm going to use. I'm going to try to stick to that. Pirate, thank you for the $2, says Keri. You have a $20 Rumble rant and Rumble chat. Oh my goodness. Thank you. If you are watching on Rumble, God bless you. Rumble doesn't censor like YouTube. And if this video gets taken down today, we will learn a lot about where we're at in the state of truth, if we're allowed to speak truth yet on YouTube or not. And so it's a good litmus test. But also, if it gets taken down, it will stay on Rumble because they don't do that crap. So let me see. Rumble EHEF 11. Now, I don't know how to put this on the screen, EHEF, but thank you for the $20 Rumble rant. I'm going to read this out. You said, people like Cuomo belong under Guantanamo, and every single penny pharma made should go to those who lost their jobs, businesses, and got vaccine injured. I could not agree with you more. Every single penny Big Pharma made should go to those people who got vaccine injured, whose loved ones died, those people who lost their jobs. In a just world, if we had a just government, that's what would be happening. I'm going to continue with this. Let's put this video back up because, Chris Cuomo is not done. And I think we can learn more about where now he's a puppet. He's a puppet for the cathedral. So if he's coming out and admitting now that ivermectin is safe and effective, and it makes you, he's not doing this, like, he's not going rogue. Let's be clear. He's not going rogue. This will give us an idea of where the mainstream is going to pivot. How are they going to try to tell the story of COVID, of the COVID years, of what they did to us? He's showing us what they're going to do. They're going to try and put the blame on a few doctors here and there. How could we have known? They're going to try and escape responsibility. That's what's happening. You mark my words. This is the way they're all going to go. Patriotic Gestalt, thank you for the super chat for $5. Keri, you're on fire. You may need to go back to F&T to rant some more. LOL. Or maybe D-Day Cobra's Tuesday night main event. Oh, I love both of those guys. Thank you. Yeah, I would love to hang out with Jeremy again. I can't remember. I think I've been on main event once, but thank you. I will reach out to them if Jeremy's talking about this stuff. I'm down to talk about it with him. This is crazy. You guys, we live in a crazy time. If we had a responsible media, this, of course we don't, but this would be what they're talking about too. But no. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead here. Just a trip down memory lane of Don Lemonhead and Chris Cuomo talking about ivermectin. Let's remember what he said about it at the time, because now, of course, he's saying, oh, it turns out it's safe and effective, and the medical establishment knew the whole time, but we were given bad information. That's what he's saying. Okay, let's remember what he said back then.
Chris Cuomo talked about ivermectin in 2020, as ex-influencer Maze Moore pointed out.
People who are injecting drugs for animals and horse.
And people telling them to. Oh my God. What person? You talk about cancel culture and who to shame. Ivermectin, a dewormer, really?
They are shaming themselves. No one has to shame them. They're shaming themselves.
No, they need to be shamed.
Yeah.
They need to be called out and shamed, brother.
Now, Joe. Again, I'm playing some of the Hills footage on this. You can go and watch the whole thing if you want. They covered it also. That's a trip down memory lane. That's what he's, they need to be shamed. He was gung-ho about if you're taking ivermectin, something's wrong with you. You're a bad person. If you're a doctor, by the way, he's now blaming doctors and saying doctors knew that it was safe, but they didn't tell us. Well, okay, but back then you were just saying that the doctors, like the one I read about who lost her job, that they should be shamed. You were saying the opposite. You knew those doctors existed, and you were saying they should be shamed for quote unquote leading people astray to ivermectin. You were part of the problem. Own it. Be a man. Be a man for once in your life. Be a man. Stand up. But no, he's not. I mean, I know I'm saying that to an empty sack of a person, like a psychopath, whatever he is. He's not a man. There's no integrity there. There's nothing that makes a person of strong character there. When you look at Chris Cuomo, he's a freaking serpent. I'm going to play a little more of this one.
This is in New York Times. Thousands believe COVID vaccines harm them. Is anyone listening? All vaccines have at least occasional side effects, but people who say they were injured by COVID vaccines believe their cases have been ignored. Well, they have. They have been ignored. I have friends that have been ignored.
While my dad is forced to be in a courtroom, I have.
Oh, shut up. I don't want to see this ad. Hold on. Hold on. I don't want to see him. He's always on my screen begging. Sorry. Those leftists who think I'm in a that's the other thing I know about the brainwashed leftists. They'll just call me a right winger or whatever. They'll say MAGA. I'm like, what's MAGA? I always like to ask them like I don't know. Okay.
On the right were furious with Cuomo's admitted reversal. Author and ex-influencer John Lefevre said, quote, "It wasn't that Chris Cuomo was lied to about ivermectin or that Joe Rogan was lucky, as he now claims. Chris Cuomo was wrong. He was lazy. He didn't do his job. He was a useful idiot, repeating propaganda talking points, asking zero questions, and shaming anyone who did. Meanwhile, other CNN watchers are mad at Cuomo for different reasons. For example, one ex-user exchanged tweets with Cuomo writing, 'Wow, just wow. It's always something with you. So glad CNN fired you. I watched you suffer with COVID and you have long COVID. Now, all of a sudden, now you have issues related to the vaccine. Come on, man.' Remember this, Chris Cuomo got COVID early on and shared the news of his illness on TV at CNN.
The virus wants us to lay down. The virus wants us to take it. Other than the blessed few, the rest of us who get this are going to have an experience unlike anything else they've ever had."
And of course, his brother Andrew was then governor of New York and became famous for daily briefings about COVID and then famous for some other things.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go to this article because he just showed when Chris Cuomo was supposedly quarantined in his basement with COVID, right? If you were in the bubble, you may not know this. You may not have heard this. But there was, at the time I covered it, there were video clips of it. He was faking being quarantined. I don't know if he had COVID or not, but he was faking being quarantined. This article, this is an old one from April 2020. CNN's Chris Cuomo's reemergence claim from coronavirus quarantine gets panned on social media. CNN anchor Chris Cuomo is being accused of staging his own emergence from the basement in his Hamptons home, where he had been recovering from the coronavirus after his widely reported spat with a bicyclist last week. And the video footage of him fighting with the bicyclist, it's like, this is during his supposed quarantine. On Monday night's installment of Cuomo Primetime, Cuomo addressed his road to recovery, which included a video showing him emerging from the basement of his Southampton home where he had been quarantined. Quote, here's what he said. He says, "All right, here it is. The official re-entry from the basement cleared by the CDC," Cuomo narrated as he walked upstairs to greet his family. Quote, "This is what I've been dreaming of literally for weeks," end quote. The video then showed him greeting his wife, who had also been diagnosed with the virus. The anchor said that she was, quote, cleared by the CDC as well. Quote, "This is the dream, just to be back up here doing normal things." So he's pretending that hasn't even been upstairs in his house, much less outside. But earlier in that week, he was caught on video footage outside of his house having an argument with a bicyclist. However, over Easter weekend, Cuomo was reportedly involved in a heated altercation that took place at his East Hampton property after a bicyclist claimed the CNN governor was violating quarantine guidelines that were being enforced by his brother, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. According to the New York Post report, a 65-year-old East Hampton resident named David was riding his bicycle on Easter Sunday when he spotted who he thought was the CNN anchor with 2 women and 3 children outside of the property. Cuomo had been recovering from his widely publicized coronavirus diagnosis. David, who did not disclose his last name in the Post, claimed he was, quote, well over 100 feet when he paused and hassled Cuomo about whether he should be in quarantine instead of being outside with others. Quote, I just looked and said, is that Chris Cuomo? Isn't he supposed to be quarantined? He said, who the hell are you? I can do what I want. He just ranted, screaming, I'll find out who you are. I said to him, your brother's the coronavirus czar, and you're not even following his rules. Unnecessary travel. It goes on and on. Anyway, he was totally faking being quarantined. For anyone who didn't remember that, oh my goodness. Okay. Look at this. This is the article Joe Rogan was referencing in that clip. This came out last week. New York Times finally talking about vaccine injuries. Finally. Headline, thousands believe COVID vaccines harmed them. Is anyone listening? All vaccines have at least occasional side effects, but people who say they were injured by COVID vaccines believe their cases have been ignored. Yeah, they have been ignored. And until now, I mean, that New York Times headline is the first big signal or flag, in my opinion, that apparently it's okay for us to talk about this now. If you see, they're propaganda too, the New York Times. And if they're finally talking about this, I guess we're allowed to talk about it now. But good luck getting any compensation. If you do have a vaccine injury, good luck getting anything. You're not allowed to sue the pharmaceutical companies. Ozzy. Hello, Ozzy, for $2. Thanks for the super chat. Says Governor Cuomo won an Emmy for his televised briefings. Did he? At first I thought you were joking, but now I realize what world I'm living in. He probably did. Cheeky Mare. Give it up for Cheeky Mare, another one of our mods. Cheeky Mare, who made me the not today joy eater needlepoint. Thank you, Cheeky Mare. For $9.99 says, here's $9.99 so Keri can purchase YouTube Premium so she doesn't need to see ads. LOL. I had an ad blocker, girl. I don't know what happened to it. Maybe my purchase expired. Thank you. I'm gonna check on it. I know it's bothering people too. So I've got more links. Let's pull up the clip from PBD. So now, he was on PBD recently. I don't like this guy. I'm just full disclosure. If you like him, okay. I don't need to sway your opinion, and you don't need to sway mine. I think he's doing, at least in my opinion, it seems like he's doing more good than bad right now. I just I don't have a compelling reason why I don't like him. I just get a bad icky feeling in my gut about PBD. And I've learned to trust that over the years because I didn't used to listen to it. And so that's all I'm saying. I just have a bad, icky feeling. And if you like him, my husband likes him. He listens to him. Anyway, he had him on. I do like that he's able to get people like Cuomo on to do interviews. And I think that's good because these clips are going big now. They're going viral, excuse the pun. And there are people on the left who've never even questioned this stuff. And now they're able to see that one of the puppet masters who pushed them into possibly some of the choices they made during the COVID years is now going back on everything he said. So that's a good thing. So let's watch this. This is where PBD asked him if he will apologize.
The reason why this is important, the reason why that's very important is because you said something. You made me think about the video that a guy texted me this week saying, how come your boy's not responding to this? I said, okay, that's good. Let me just have you respond to it. But before I show it to you, I want to go to our...
Wait a minute. Hold on. People in the chat, PBD hired Cuomo. Is that... Oh, that's why he's on the ad. Duh, Keri. Oh, gross. Okay, interviewing him is one thing, but putting him on the payroll is quite another. That's gross. Sorry. Whatever. I'm still glad he interviewed him, but ew. Ew. Just, yeah.
That's good. Let me just have you respond to it. But before I show it to you, I want to go to our sponsor because Manect is on fire. And let me give you guys some statistic here. It's very, very important, guys, for you to know this. Guy sends me a message. I'm starting to have panic attacks, contact with. Sometimes these types of
Hold on. I'm going to skip past his sponsor.
questions you can't ask your relatives. Do you know a cold response, Vinny? It's 3%. Twitter is 3 to 91%. Over 50% of the time, I value your time. Here's $200. What do you...
This is his ad. Wow, his ad is lasting very, very long time. Get expert advice instantly. Connect one-on-one with the people you admire the most to get the answers you need. Cuomo is up there. What is this nonsense? Wait a minute. His ad is for you to pay money to get a personal answer from these people. This is like Cameo, but instead of reality TV stars like from Love is Blind, it's like sociopaths from the media. Just go on Cameo, PBD. What the hell? Oh my goodness. Here, pay me money and I will talk to you, Chris Cuomo. It's like Cameo. It's Cameo. That's what this is. It's like the Cameo app.
You think about this. I'm thinking about raising money on this. Hey, my wife and I are going through some challenges. Hey, we're trying a networking app where people get back to pay for a speedy response. By the way, Cuomo's answers. That's his QR.
This is a very long ad for people to connect with Cuomo. What? Wait, hold on. How long does this take? There's more. Expert leaderboard. Gross. Okay. What? It just keeps going. Dinner. If you pay more, you can get dinner with all of these guys. You can have dinner with Chris Cuomo. Oh goodness. Okay.
Can you go back up to see?
Is this not a conflict of interest though? You're interviewing him and he like works for you now or something? Okay.
Chris, and started providing more balanced view on COVID vaccines, including the serious harm that can cause. Would you be willing to apologize for interviews like this one from 20?
Okay, so we're finally here. We're at the question. I'm going to rewind just a little bit. Here we go.
View on COVID vaccines, including the serious harm that can cause. Would you be willing to apologize for interviews like this one from 2021? The mainstream media denial of natural immunity claims that the vaccine would stop infection transmission and complete omission of potential risk caused great harm in our society. People lost careers, relationships, loved ones, and trust in our institutions due to its harmful propaganda. Your apology would show a lot of courage that, frankly, your peers have lacked. All right, play the clip. It's 2 minutes. Go for it.
Everybody should know that about you, Byron Donald. You are not telling people to get vaccinated. You are not pushing it. You are not saying it's the right choice. You're saying you're not doing it and your family's not doing it, and you're leaving out of the equation that you can make other people sick, as if that doesn't matter. Okay?
Chris, did you not just hear my answer 30 seconds ago where I said if you want to be protected from these variants and the original strain, please go get vaccinated? I promote you to do that. I just told you live on your own show that if you want to get vaccinated in America, go do it. But if there are Americans like myself who choose not to, please don't berate me for doing that. That is a personal choice I have made. It's my own healthcare. No, I am allowed to do that. I'm entitled to do it.
Byron, you're absolutely right to do it. You have a right to do it. Two different statements. Okay? Do you have the right? Of course, nobody's debating that except you guys as a false choice. What I'm saying is it right to do it? Have you spoken to a doctor? You're supposed to be a leader. Have you talked to the CDC and the people who are in Florida at the Department of Health about whether or not they think you made a good choice? Because if your answer is just then, well, I don't care what they say. This is me. I'm an American. That is being dumb
as a proxy for being bold. And I don't think it's a good message.
Wow. It's really funny again, right? The projection, because very accurately describing himself, you, Chris Cuomo, pretending that people should reasonably choose to take this vaccine in the first place, which I don't think was a reasonable choice at all. I think it was the wrong choice for the majority of Americans. Again, unless you were in one of these groups with a comorbidity, if you had some kind of pre-existing health concern, maybe, or if you were elderly and infirm, maybe, or obese, maybe. Even then, it's still a maybe. So dumb and bold. Not only are you out here pushing that it was the reasonable choice to take the vax, which it wasn't, it had not been around long enough for studies, but you were out here pushing it like it was a given, and you were part of the propaganda machine that lied. And at the beginning, do you remember at the beginning, they told us that if you got the vax, you would not get COVID. They told us that at the beginning. They thought we forgot. We got you on camera, dead to rights. You guys were saying you couldn't get COVID if you got the vax. Oh, but it turns out you can. Then when that news started breaking that like, oh, you can still get COVID even though you got the vax, it's not working. Then they're like, oh, wait, no, we never said that. We said that it's going to reduce your symptoms. That's what we said. Yeah. And also it's going to prevent you from giving it to other people. Yeah. What a bunch of tap dancing craziness is that? What a lunatic thing. Dumb and bold. And so here he is being dumb and bold, telling this guy that there's something wrong with him making his own medical decisions, that there's something wrong with that somehow he has to get the vax so that Chris Cuomo's vax works. It's like, I saw this funny meme during the eclipse. It's like, look, I'm selling these special eclipse glasses, but you have to wear your eclipse glasses so that my eclipse glasses work. Brought to you by Pfizer. You gotta get the vax or mine doesn't work. Dumb and bold. That's what you were, Chris Cuomo.
Because remember, it's not just you protecting yourself.
Let me say this.
It's you protecting me and other people from you. That's what.
Go F yourself, dude. That anybody who said this crap to us, take a long walk off a short pier. Sociopath. That's what this is. Sociopathic. Abusive, coercive, manipulative.
Why you get vaccinated, not just for yourself. Important distinction. Go ahead.
Actually, the way vaccines work are to protect yourself. A vaccine that basically gives you a special cocoon where you actually limit the worst harmful effects of the virus itself, or may not get it altogether, depending on your own personal physiology. So that's the way vaccines work. Now, to me personally, I did talk to a couple of doctors that I know about it. I told them I already had it and I'm 42. What do you think? And they said, yeah, you're fine. If that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it. They didn't come and say, no, you have to do it because of everybody else. Because if other people want to be protected, they have access to vaccines. Go get the vaccine. I would never tell anybody not to get vaccinated. I do totally support it if that's what somebody chooses to do.
Byron, I'm with you.
I don't know why this is hard. It's that simple.
Oh, listen, I totally agree with you. It is very simple. I think you're making it hard because you're seeing some kind of righteousness and a choice to do something that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But again,
what are you talking about? Hey, see the projection that sociopaths do? It is very simple. You're making it hard. No, he's not. What he's saying is the most simple thing, which is you make your choice, I'll make my choice. That's the most simple thing. Cuomo is the one making it, the sociopath is the one making it convoluted and then accusing him of doing the opposite. The sociopath is the one saying, well, no, you have to make a choice that I like, that agrees with my choice, or my choice won't work. My choice is rendered ineffective if your choice isn't. You have to do the choice that I'm doing, and otherwise you're bad. You freaking liar. We saw so much of this during the COVID years. So much of this we withstood. This nonsense, this evil nonsense. And it's not hyperbole to say Chris Cuomo has the blood of people on his hands because he was part of the machine that coerced and pushed and bamboozled and manipulated people into making the choice he wanted. He wanted the unreasonable choice to take a new and experimental vaccine that had not been around long enough for longitudinal studies. So we had no idea what the side effects were going to be. And the creator of the mRNA technology was saying, don't take it, by the way. Robert Malone, they censored him too. Yes, gaslighting. Thank you, Davina. That's exactly what it is. Sorry, not, yeah, Davina. This is actual gaslighting.
That's your right. What I'm saying is something else. You're wrong about how vaccines work. You're only giving part of the prophylaxis, okay? The other aspect to why you take the vaccine is it also reduces, not completely, nothing is perfect, and certainly this vaccine is not, but it also reduces your ability to communicate the virus.
This is bullshit because this one didn't. They still got it, dumbass. And you know what? There were also doctors and studies that said, hey, we actually think, go and look at this research. I haven't looked at it in a while, but I remember at the time they were saying, actually, it's the vaccinated who are probably spreading it more. The vaccinated people who are still getting COVID because, oh, guess what? They can still get COVID. And they were saying because some of them have reduced symptoms, they don't even know they have it. And so they're out there probably spreading it more. There were scientists and doctors saying this and doing studies on this. So he's exactly wrong.
And make other people infected. That part matters too.
Okay. Now that's resurfacing. We've had conversations. We've talked about COVID. Tom and I are talking about the long vaccine and what that's doing. A lot of my friends are going through it. And
Long COVID.
Not long vaccine, forgive me. Long COVID. A lot of friends are talking about it. We're 40, 50. You know, you're sitting there saying, hey, what the hell is going on in my body? What's changed from that conversation with you and Byron to where you are today?
Well, a lot has changed, and a lot needs to change that hasn't. Here's what matters to me about the clip. Apology? Of course not.
Wow. Right out the gate. Right out the gate. Tells you everything you need to know about this slippery snake. Apology, he says? Of course not. Apology, of course not. Okay, thanks. No humility. You've learned nothing. If these are even your real opinions, I don't know if they are. Maybe you're being told by the same corporate puppet government masters who sent you out there to shill the vaccine. Maybe they have you doing this tour now. Maybe they have you on all the podcasts now saying, oh, guess what? Oh, guess what? Ivermectin was safe and effective. We all got fooled. Maybe they put you out there. I don't know. But let's say you really did have a change of heart. You've learned nothing. As arrogant and evil as always. Oh, you have no responsibility. There was nothing. You didn't fail. You didn't mess up. You didn't do anything wrong. No apology. Nothing to apologize for. You arrogant prick.
Byron Donalds comes on my show now. Okay. Why? Exchange of respect was never personal. I believe as a leader at that time, you had a duty to be thorough in what you were putting out there as opposed to just playing politics. Okay. This was never as simple as vaccine good, vaccine bad. Politics made it that. And it put us into a toxic environment, no pun intended, where even today, there's no curiosity about the vaccine. You get a VAERS system, which is very imperfect, and you don't have robust government dialogue or investigation of the vaccine. You don't have political investigation of what happened during the pandemic, what was right, what was wrong, to Vinny's point about what's still continuing, about who wants to control what, because they only see politics. They only see advantage. My concern is that the unknowns are now more dangerous than the knowns. So,
are you freaking idiot? If you're sincere, you're a super moron. The unknowns have always been bigger than the knowns. And by the way, not everybody, it's not all politics. That's you. Again, projection. You're all politics. You've got an agenda. So you assume everybody else does. And the unknowns have always been bigger. Oh, now they are that you're late to the party and you're saying, oh, we don't have transparency. Yeah, we've been saying that since the beginning. Yes, thank you, Pirate Tomsky. Ha ha ha. He played politics with it. Exactly. He played politics with it. What a prick. The unknowns, since I'm just letting it all hang out here now, You know, the unknowns that we're not getting to, and by the way, he was part of this. I'm going to take a step back from the video for a second. If there's anyone that's in that, I keep thinking about you, the people that were in that echo chamber who got bamboozled, who got swindled, whether you're awake now or you're still asleep and you're just here hate watching me. I'm still thinking about you, though. I'm still thinking about you not knowing so many things because you were in an echo chamber. It was known during the pandemic, okay? This vaccine most likely emerged from the Wuhan lab. Duh. Do you think it jumped several species at some wet market and just happened to be located next to a lab that studies gain of function research on coronaviruses? You think it's just coincidental it happened right next to the lab? It's like this just spontaneously occurred in nature, didn't maybe escape the lab. Now, I don't know if it was released on purpose or it escaped. It probably escaped. But good luck ever getting the answer to that question, because we can't even get the answer to where it came from. Because you know what they did in the first few days when this became a big deal in the US finally? The Lancet letter. You've probably you don't even know what the Lancet letter is, do you? You don't. I'm not trying to shame you. I'm not trying to say what a dummy. I'm just saying that's how sheltered you were in your echo. That's how much information they kept from you. You don't know what the Lancet letter is. Stop what you are doing and go read it. They put out a letter. I'm going to pull it up. I haven't covered this in a while. I've covered it before. They put out a letter where they had all these different scientists sign it. And they did this as a piece of propaganda. So they could immediately, at the very beginning, they put this out in, February 2020. They put it out at the very beginning. They had 27 scientists sign it. And it was a letter where they said, you know, we're scientists and we're telling you there's no way it came from the lab. That's a crazy conspiracy theory to even ask that question. There's no way it came from the lab. We're scientists and they also said, guess what else they said in the letter? Go read it. They said, we have no conflict of interest here. None of us have a conflict of interest. I'm going to spoiler alert. They had a conflict of interest. Okay. Several of them worked with people at the Wuhan lab. They had done research, at the Wuhan lab. The guy who organized this, Peter, what's his name? Peter Dojek. Hold on. I haven't covered this in a while. I wasn't prepared to do it today. But again, since we're talking about all this, Peter Daszak. You can go read Vanity Fair covered this. Okay, so there are outlets. If you're locked in that echo chamber, if you're still in what I call the cult, please don't get offended. But if you're still in that echo chamber and you only get your news like from mainstream sources and you believe in the right-left paradigm and I won't read certain outlets. Okay, go to Vanity Fair, look up the Lancet letter, look up Peter. I'm going to spell his last name for you. Peter Daszak, Daszak. He's the one who organized the letter. He's the one who signed it. Do you know what he was in charge of? EcoHealth Alliance. Look up EcoHealth Alliance. So what happened was when Obama became president, he banned gain of function research on coronaviruses. He said we couldn't do that here in the US. So then what happened? The NIH, which we pay for, our tax dollars, the National Institute of Health, because we couldn't do it here, the National Institute of Health gave money to the EcoHealth, this company called EcoHealth Alliance, which was run by this guy, Peter D, who wrote the Lancet letter. EcoHealth Alliance gave that money to the Wuhan lab to do gain of function research on coronaviruses in China because we couldn't legally do it in the US anymore because Obama banned it. We still paid for it. The taxpayer paid for this crap. We paid for the manufacture of COVID because it escaped from that lab at the very least. So the very guy who was taking the NIH money, our tax dollars, taking it into EcoHealth Alliance and then giving it to the Wuhan lab to do gain-of-function research on coronaviruses. He's the one that organized the letter. He's the one that got all the scientists together. He's the main guy that said, hey, there's no way it came from this lab. We don't have a conflict of interest. It's a conspiracy theory. Any crazy person who thinks it came from this lab that studies this stuff. And then you know what the media did? You know what people like Chris Cuomo did? They all cited that letter. Experts say it's a conspiracy theory. They went late night talk show hosts, all of them. The whole machine played the game. The whole machine went along with it. You're a crazy, kooky, tinfoil hat wearing lunatic if you think it came from the lab that studies coronaviruses. It didn't. It came from a market next door that was a bat and a pig, and they had a baby. And you know, I'm just kidding. I'm just trying to show you how absurd it is what they got you to believe. They got you to believe that somehow it was insane that it came from that it escaped from the lab. Don't even get me started on, look up what happened to the lab workers, some of those lab workers that went missing in the Wuhan lab who studied this stuff. We weren't allowed to talk about this. Your videos got taken down from YouTube if you talked about it. Your posts got taken down from Facebook and Twitter if you talked about it. They completely covered this up. And you know what they did instead? And you may have been a part of this and you may have been played. And if you were, pay attention, because I'm trying, I hope that you look at what they did to you and the mechanics of it so you can see it coming the next time it comes down the pike, because it's going to come down the pike again. Okay. So here's what they did. We should have all been united, Americans. We should have all been united in outrage. We should have all been united with questions like, where did this come from? Did we pay for this? Was this research being, oh my goodness, it was being paid for by EcoHealth Alliance, which was being paid for by NIH, which is our tax dollars. How did this get out? Did it escape? Was it let out on purpose? Like, we should have been asking these questions at the very beginning. And you know how what they did to make sure that we were not a united force? We should have been a united force, and we weren't. And you know what they did? They played on that same old psyop, that same old puppet trick they do every time, because it's so deeply, deeply ingrained in our psyche now. And it works on most of us. They played on that right-left, that fake right-left tribalism. That's all they had to do. That's all they had to do. So we wouldn't be united, asking them questions, holding their feet to the fire, finding out, did we pay for this thing, this virus that's wreaking havoc on people and killing our loved ones? Where did this come from? How was this allowed to happen? I thought we banned this here. We didn't ask those questions. We didn't stand united. You know why? Because we were so easily led, like children following the Pied Piper, down to this right-left thing where all they had to do was say, all the freaking puppet masters like Chris Cuomo, he was a part of it. He was one of them. All they had to do was say, hey, the right, they don't want to wear masks. They don't want to take the jab. That's what the right's doing. Hey, the left wants to wear the mask. The left supports the science. The left, they want to take the jab and wear the mask. And most people, I'm talking about people on the right and left. I'm not talking about just one. Most people lined up with their tribe at that point. And then they started the fighting, and all the stuff we saw, the media, the propaganda, blame the unvaccinated. They're killing people. They're killing grandma. They started all of this. So everybody's bickering. Everybody's fighting for years about like the mask and the jab and what is they got everybody fighting over what should have been a personal medical decision. They got everybody fighting over it. And nobody stood united saying, where'd this come from? Who paid for it? Okay, but now the mainstream media, just like the New York Times is now talking about vaccine injury, they're talking about COVID origins too. Now they're all saying, yeah, it probably came from that lab. Look that up. I'm not lying to you. Look it up. You'll find even mainstream sites that you believe in, you trust, talking about it now. How many things did they tell you were conspiracy theory? How many times did they fool you? Only for them to come out now, years down the road, now that the time period for us to have been united on this is past. They successfully had us at each other's throats. Now that that's passed, and now they're willing to say, well, yeah, it probably came from the lab. I just want you to look back and say, how many times did they bamboozle you? And did you have a friend like me or was right about a lot of things, who you thought was a crazy conspiracy theorist. I ask because if you had a friend like that and you realize you were fooled, I'm not saying that friend's going to be right about everything. I'm just saying you might want to look to that friend next time. Next time you might want to, maybe their voice should be one of the ones that you consider when we're going through another crazy time of chaos, when things are a little insane and there are forces at work that are causing you to hate people like that friend. Maybe instead say, hey, I don't really understand what you're on about. It seems like crazy conspiracy theory to me, but why don't you come over? Let's have lunch. I'd love to hear what evidence you have for your opinions. Maybe you could try something like that. Yes, Texas sheep lady, now that so many people have died. Yes. Now that so many people have died from COVID, by the way, they try and lay those deaths at the feet of the unvaccinated. Those deaths are at their feet because they actively pushed people away from treatments like ivermectin. And they did stuff like putting the elderly who were more susceptible, they were putting the elderly in old people homes. They were putting COVID patients in there with them, trapping them in there with these COVID patients and killing all of these elderly people in nursing homes. They did that. I'm losing my voice from ranting a bit today. I want to show you. I know we've already done 2 hours. Let's continue with this lying snake Cuomo for a little bit more, and then I want to show you a bit of another clip here.
They only see politics. They only see advantage. My concern is that the unknowns are now more dangerous than the knowns. So what's changed since then? I don't have long vaccine. People are saying I've admitted long vaccine.
Oh, okay.
People are saying I've admitted that the vaccine hurt me. I have not admitted that. I don't know that. Do I now believe that we have data to support the fact that there are thousands of people who have had adverse effects that are not getting attention, let alone treatment? Yes. And I fault government for that. I do have what they call long COVID. Now, I say they call because the government, it's funny, after that clip, I got called by government people bitching at me because I said that the vaccine wasn't perfect. So that's where we were then. That's where we were then. But they say, hey, Chris, easy on the long COVID. We don't know that it's a thing. We don't know. We're still trying to figure it out. It could be other things, autoimmune. So I'm saying my doctors say I have long COVID. I have the symptoms. They showed me my blood work, scared the bejesus out of me to see this glowing micro clot stuff that they see in my blood. It really shook me up. So I'm doing all the protocols. My doctor, Terrain Health, they're an international consortium because they have to do it themselves because the government's not giving them any guidance.
I'm going to pause it right here for a second. Again, since I'm just saying everything today, whatever I want to say, screw you, YouTube. We'll see what happens if you can say all this stuff now. COVID was not just a respiratory disease. It was a vascular disease. It affected all of your blood vessels, which affects your brain health, your heart, everything. And this is why, this didn't come. There's no way you're going to convince me this came from nature, from hopping species at some wet market. This came from the Wuhan lab that studied gain of function research on coronaviruses. You can go and read the studies that they did to engineer diseases like this, to make them more lethal to humans and to make them more contagious. This is what they were studying there. This disease, COVID, affected people in all different ways. Okay, because it was a disease of the vascular system. And what's interesting to me, and again, it's like we're playing catch up now that people like Chris Cuomo have decided, the gatekeepers have decided, oh, I guess we can talk about this without getting banned and censored. there's all these conversations that people have been having in underground ways and channels and stuff for a while that we have not been able to have in public. And I feel like now it's like, okay, now we're 3 or 4 years behind, to have these conversations. But one of them is the ways in which there are people who've had reactions to the vaccine that are very similar to reactions from COVID. And just anecdotally, I know people who, so for example, I never took the vaccine, thank God. I did have COVID, and it messed with my menstrual cycle, TMI, sorry. I know that it did that for other women as well, but so did the vaccine. Because I had the people that took the one with the spike protein in it, which is the same spike protein that was in the virus. That's the other reason I wasn't about to take that vax. It's like, why am I may or may not get COVID. I don't know, but I'm certainly not giving myself that thing. Why am I going to take this? It's not even going to prevent me getting COVID. Why would I do that? I don't know what else why. This is new. I don't know what that's going to cause. But there are people that look, I know people who, the vaccine brought back their Bell's palsy. Brought back their other autoimmune disorders. I know people for whom COVID did that. It's crazy. All different kinds of things. I know a person who lost their voice for like a year. We all know, gosh, who's the famous musician? Because so many of it, we got to see, by the way, we learned a lot about people. We also learned a lot about musicians and how many of those people are shills. How many of those celebrities and musicians and like Dee Snider are just freaking pharma shells. Just gross, disgusting. They were never counterculture. Or if they were, they lost their way a long time ago. Remember the Spotify ones remember Joni Mitchell and what's his face, that loser who said they're going to take their music off Spotify because they're letting Joe Rogan talk about Ivermectin on good. Never listen to those guys again. Total shills. We learned a lot about those people. Eric Clapton, thank you. Thank you, Randy. Yes, Van Morrison and Eric Clapton both came out hard against the vax. Yes, and they were brutal to Eric Clapton. Eric Clapton's the one I'm trying to remember because he lost the ability to play guitar for a while because he lost feeling in his arm, from what I remember. I know someone else that happened to as well. And we've all heard of people who got, I think I'm asking you, because at least in my case, I've heard of people who got like crazy, all kinds of varied reactions to COVID, and similar varied reactions to the vax. I'm just looking to see what you guys are saying. Elsa, there was someone in Canada who got paralyzed. The doctors offered to end their life for them. Yeah, they're doing that now. Medically assisted suicide in Canada now. Anyway, I just wanted to pause that and say, I'm done. I'm done censoring myself on COVID, and I am going to start talking about this. And I hope we start having these conversations and figuring out all the different things that have happened to people as a result of COVID itself, or the jab, or the jab. Randy Wallen for $2. Thank you for the super chat. We forgive for ourselves, not for the other. That is so true. That's what I was talking about forgiveness earlier. That's why I aim for it. I aim for it, even though I know it's a ways off for me for some people. I know that, but I aim for it. I have friends who don't aim for it in some cases, and I understand that completely. I do. But I want to reach forgiveness because, like Randy says, it's for me. I think it's better for me. Fernando Nauman for 5.95. Is that, I always forget, is that euros? 5.99. Thank you very much for the super chat. Says, what kept me firm not to take the jab was the certainty that I'm not responsible for protecting anyone but myself. This is what kept me going. You and me both. They kept trying to sell us that lie, didn't they? You're responsible for everybody else. Ours won't work if you don't take it. Such a lie. Randy Wallen for $5. Thank you, sir. Says breakthrough pain was pharma's con to sell more oxy. Breakthrough infection was their con when the first series of shots didn't work. I remember that. They called it breakthrough infection. I watched a great series about the big pharma and, you know, how they pushed oxy on people and all the deaths that led to. And there were some parallels there. So that's a great reminder. The one I watched was called Painkiller, but I know there have been a couple of them. Patriotic Gestalt for $5. Excuses and no remorse keeps sins thriving within. Yes. And that's what we're seeing with him. That's what we're seeing with Cuomo. He says, apology, never. Okay. So like Patriotic Gestalt saying, you've learned nothing then. And as a viewer, it's like, well, then what's going to keep you from doing that to us again? Because you haven't even accepted responsibility for doing it once. So why would we ever trust anything you have to say, Chris Cuomo, at all? Nothing. Nobody should listen to you except to learn from your mistakes that you're too arrogant to learn from yourself. Michael Collier, hey, sir. Good to see you for $4.99. Says if Chris had not been fired, he would still be reading the teleprompter on CNN like a good little boy. He's a POS. Yes, he is. POS, by the way, Michael, was another phrase that went through my head several times today, and I didn't say it yet. Like, I'm trying to just not say too many curse words. Okay. I'm your boy. What a funny name. Says, yep, I was lied to by a medical facility I worked for, saying that it would prevent the virus and that it would prevent me from getting it and spreading it. Yep. And I'm sorry they lied to you. They lied to so many people. They lied on national media. Rachel Maddow said that lie. I've seen that clip of her so many times saying that lie. You won't get it if you take the vax. Neil Young, yes, thank you. Neil Young was the weaselly shill on Spotify who was like, I'm gonna pull my music because they let Joe Rogan talk about ivermectin, man. What a loser. What an absolute loser. By the way, not only was he wrong and stupid, but I thought that move was sort of pretty arrogant in a way, because it was like, as if people, as if as if you think young people know or care. Young people don't know or care, Neil Young. Biden said it. Yeah, Biden said it too, Therese. He said, if you take the vax, you won't get COVID. I remember. Okay, let's listen to some more of this weasel.
The vaccine is a really important conversation that's being ignored. I do not fault myself for telling people at the time what the government was giving us as best practices. People say, but your job is to question. On what basis?
Bullshit. So again, he doesn't fault himself. He's not at fault. No apology. This is more of the same. No humility. Learn nothing. Totally arrogant. Second of all, your job is to question. On what basis? On the basis of being a journalist. What do you think? Any government? It's so funny. He talks about being political, but isn't it so funny about how these journalists, like, they have no problem questioning the government if it's a political party they don't like. If it's a Republican or Trump or whoever, oh, let's question. Let's not believe anything. Was it let me ask you, was it journalists' responsibility during Watergate to question the Nixon administration? Was it? On what basis, Chris Cuomo would say? On what basis? We just listen to whatever the government tells. No, you don't, you liar. You liar. You pick and choose what you fall in line with. And you failed in your responsibility as a journalist. You absolutely failed. You didn't just fail. You went worse. You were a mouthpiece for propaganda. You pushed propaganda. It's not just that you failed to ask questions. You went the opposite way and you pushed propaganda, you evil MFer.
The basis of questioning early on was because I say so, because you don't get to tell me what to do and not do. Fine, I say, you are right. I said it then. However, you can't expect to be everywhere and do everything that the government is controlling, because you're not going to. Your kids aren't going to be able to be in school, just like is true today in terms of what your state's vaccine protocol is. That was my point. What this guy and others want me to do is to say, I was wrong, the vaccine is bad. I'm not going to say.
No, you absolute jerk. You're refusing to listen. No, we want you to say, if what you would say if you were an honest person is, I was wrong. I should have asked questions. I don't care what conclusion you come to about the vaccine. You're creating a straw man. You liar. This is another cluster B tactic. I don't want you to say the vaccine is bad. We don't even know. That's our point. We don't even know what all the various side effects are going to be. We know there are some bad ones now. Yes. But you're lying. You're creating a straw man and you're burning that straw man so that you don't have to interact with what we're saying. It's like if I'm saying I like dogs, and then Chris Cuomo's going, Keri wants me to say that cats are evil. Well, I'm not going to say it. I never said that. I said I like dogs. He's creating a straw man and setting that on fire because that's easier than dealing with what we're saying. No, what we're saying is that if you were a man of integrity, you would say, I'm sorry, I was wrong to push the vax. Nobody's saying you have to say it's bad. But I was wrong to push it without having all the facts. I was wrong to push propaganda on people. I was wrong to sit there with Don Lemon in those clips that we watched. And the other clip, I was wrong to mock people and call them bad people for not making the same choice I did. I was wrong to say the vaccine's good. How about that? That's a start. I was wrong not to approach this with journalistic integrity. I was wrong not to be neutral, and I was wrong to swallow what the government was telling me. I was wrong not to look into these doctors who were being censored and fired. How about start there? How about I was wrong 5 minutes ago during this interview when I said I don't owe an apology? How about that? I was wrong when I said that I was misled and how could I have known? How about that? You're a dirty, dirty man. And nobody should listen to what you have to say. No one, except for the reason we're doing it now. I hope they listen to you as an illustration of how corrupt the media is. I hope they take that from your story, from listening to you, how corrupt the media is, what a corrupt soul you have, and how a person's character does matter. I don't care as much about the politics. I care about the character. I still have some friends who are in the woke cult. You guys who are regulars know that. They believe in an evil ideology, but I think their heart is good. If I think your heart is good, that's what matters most to me because you can change your bad opinions. But this guy has a dirty, dirty heart. So it doesn't matter that he's now speaking opinions closer to mine or not. It doesn't matter because his heart is freaking soiled and he's not interested in cleaning it. So what does he learn? Nothing. Don't trust a person with a dirty heart.
Say that. The data is overwhelming that when the vaccine entered our population, the people going into the hospital with very serious or eventually terminal cases was reduced. Now, at what cost and why? We don't know. Am I open to that? Yes. If I were a propagandist, I wouldn't be doing the reporting that I'm doing right now.
You liar. Look at this sleight of hand. You liar. You liar. You want us to forget that you're a propagandist? I remember what I said at the beginning. I haven't forgotten. There's no way you're out here saying this now and they don't know it. Like you are sent out here to do this. You are a propagandist and obviously you haven't had a change of heart. Your heart is dirty. You're not apologizing for anything. You're not a person of character. You didn't come to these new opinions because you're a person of integrity and you've searched your heart and you've humbled yourself and you have you're completely arrogant. You're still the same old dirty hearted prick. So yeah, you're out here saying this and the establishment knows full well you're doing it. So all you're doing is showing us now, okay, what's the new propaganda going to be? That's what you're doing. Where's it going now? What's the mainstream establishment? What's the government? What are the talking heads? What are the celebrities? Where are they going to go next? What are they going to do next? Here's what they're going to do. Look at Chris Cuomo. Look at what he's saying. That's where they're going. They're going to a place of how could we have known, which is what we've been predicting for 4 years, that you're going to do this. How could we have known? We collectively didn't know that this was going to be bad. We didn't know masking children was going to be bad. Yeah, well, some of us were saying it was. We didn't know there were going to be vaccine injuries. Well, some people, doctors and scientists, were saying there might be, and you were censoring them. All you're doing right now, Chris Cuomo, you are a propagandist. You're still a propagandist. And for the people whose eyes are open, you're giving us a sign of where the story's going now. Thanks for being that roadmap for us. If he fooled you the first time, guys, if you were in that echo chamber and you believed this fool and you followed him like the Pied Piper down that path, don't let him fool you a second time. What's that phrase? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, you won't fool me twice. That's not the phrase, but I like that rewrite. That should be the phrase. Don't let him fool you twice, guys. Okay. This guy, I'm not a propagandist. I love that he just says it outright. I'm not a Oh my goodness.
Cases was reduced. Now, at what cost and why? We don't know. Am I open to that? Yes. If I were a propagandist, I wouldn't be doing the reporting that I'm doing right now. I started a Substack that is only about this, where I am letting you see what my doctor is saying and what we're doing on my own dime, because I believe in it. I'll tell you something else that's going to get you a lot of hits. I am taking a, what do they call it? Like a regular dose, whatever. They're trying to build up of ivermectin.
So we already saw this part where he admits that he's now taking ivermectin after mocking it and shaming people and saying people should be shamed and that doctors who are prescribing it should be shamed. And now comes full circle. He's taking horse medicine. There you go. A serious man says, I had to stop following certain people in my life who were antagonistic over COVID. It opened my eyes to the true banality of evil. Didn't it? I understand, man. The true banality of evil. Yes. It's like, I'll say this to you, a serious man. I was talking about this book, Ordinary Men, earlier. I'm going to keep plugging it. You got to read this book. This is about human nature and the psychology of man and how man, all the different reasons that man can be convinced to do evil. And there's a small fraction of people who in this world who are what's classified as cluster B, like the sociopaths, the psychopaths, the narcissist, borderline, histrionic. I think it's a much higher percentage than what they say it is, honestly, but it's still a small percentage. And those people love it. Some of those people, the ones who are sadists, the ones who are Machiavellian, they love it. They love hurting others. They love the excuse to do evil. They get off on it. A religious person, a Christian person might say they're demon possessed. A secular person might say they have cluster B. And they're all talking about the same thing, though. Evil. Evil. Yes, I'm saying that people with cluster B disorders behave in evil ways. They do. It's another way of talking about it. But that's a small percentage of people. Again, I think it's larger than what is recognized, but it's a small percentage of people. The majority of people who are convinced to do evil when we go through things like the COVID years or other periods of history you can think of, like this, what this book is about, the majority of people, it's what you said, a serious man, it's the banality of evil. It's the other groups of people. They make up the larger percentage of people. These are the people who think of themselves as good people. They don't get off on doing evil, but they're not going to put themselves out to stop it. Now, some of them go along with it. They will pick up the pitchfork and they will join in. Have you ever heard of the people who study riots? There's a study, oh man, I haven't talked about this in a while. It's riot threshold study. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Maybe someone in the chat knows. If you haven't heard of this is fascinating. Makes sense. Again, it's about the psychology of man. And it's a study about the threshold at which people will join a riot and do something evil. And they basically said, okay, if you got a group of people and they're all screaming and they're all angry, and nobody has thrown a brick yet, there are the people who have a threshold of 0, who will be like the first person to pick up a brick and throw it. There's very few of those, but there are some of them. I think of those people as like the sociopaths and psychopaths. They're like the threshold of 0. They're there. They're the first brick thrower. But then you've got the threshold of 1. Then there's a little bit more of those. If there's one person already throwing a brick, then they're likelier, they will pick up a brick and throw it. But only if there's another person already doing it, right? Okay, then you pull a step back, and in a riot, you've got the threshold of 2 people. There's more of those. If there's 2 people throwing bricks, oh yeah, they're in. Now they've got a brick they're throwing in. And you pull all the way back in these studies that, people who are a threshold of 5 or what have you. I'm only going to throw a brick if there's like 5 people already doing this. I'm going to join in. That's like the banality of evil. That's like this book. That's like the people who maybe they weren't the ones like Cuomo on TV. They didn't have powerful positions in the media to push the propaganda and to say shame people and, but they were the ones who, once they saw it happening in society, they would say things to you. If they were your friend, they might cut you off out of their life. They might start a pylon against you on social media. They might be your employer. They might try to force you into getting the vaccine, tell you you're a bad person. If you don't, they might fire you. Those people are all a part of evil. They have different thresholds at which they'll join. And then there are the people I mentioned before who maybe they don't overtly do anything. They don't join the pylon mobs. They don't call you names, but they see it and they stay quiet out of cowardice. Those people are part of it too. I've been that person. I was that person when I was in the woke mob and I saw the excesses of toxicity of the feminist part of woke and social justice. I saw pylons and mobs happen, and I didn't say anything back then because I was a coward. I've been that person. I'm here to tell you, you don't have to be that person. You don't have to be any of those people. With the exception of maybe the small percentage of, like I said, the evil, the sociopaths and psychopaths. I don't know. I honestly don't know if they can change. I think they're the people in the Bible where it's like, that verse about how God hardened Pharaoh's heart? I kind of wonder if they're like those people. It's like their heart is hardened. I don't know. But with the small exception of that percentage of people, I don't know about. But the rest of those people who go along because they're at a threshold of 3 in a riot or whatever, and they join the pylon, they shame you on social media, they say things they regret. I believe in you, people. I believe you can change. But the first step is admitting you were wrong and realizing it. Don't be like Chris Cuomo. That's a mind and heart of arrogance. That's a hardened heart. I don't know why he's saying different words now than he used to say. I don't know why he's saying different opinions now than he used to say, but it's not from a change of heart. So don't be like that. If you feel regret over anything you said or did during the COVID years, that's brilliant. That's the first step. You have a heart. You're capable of feeling regret. That means you have a heart. Your heart's not hardened like his. Open your eyes. Because if you got fooled once and you acknowledge it and you're aware of it now, you don't want to be fooled again. Listen to some of your so-called conspiracy theory friends. I'm not saying trust everything they say. Never. I would never say that. I'm saying be critical about everything. But listen to those people because maybe they might have a perspective in the future that you won't have considered that you might want to listen to next time around. Mostly, though, I'm going to tell you the opposite of what Don Lemonhead said in that clip when he mocked people doing research. Do your own research. Read source materials. The mainstream media, start opening your eyes. They don't give you source materials. They tell you what to think about things. They tell you and they paraphrase and they say, this person did this and said this. This person did a racism today. This person did a transphobia today. This person said harmful, misleading stuff about COVID today. Okay, well, can I see what they actually said? Can I see the video? Can I see the article? Can you quote them? Oh, you don't include the quotes here? Well, that's weird. Or you have just one quote. Can I see the full context? Like, start asking, read the source material, go online, find it. Find the source material, read the actual quotes, read the studies. Hey, you know what? Maybe you were one of those people who got bamboozled and you were told that the science said to get the jab or the science said to wear the mask. You got fooled, right? Okay. Don't fall for that again. Read scientific studies. Read a lot of them. Read ones that disagree with what your current opinion is. Don't get fooled again. That's all I'm saying. That's how I wish I could end it, right? Don't get fooled again. Because we're going to go through this again and again and again in different ways. I'm pretty sure it's going to be about the climate next, the environment. But I don't know. It could be another virus thing. Who knows? But we're going through this again. Buckle up. If you got fooled on COVID, please don't be one of these people out there getting fooled again. Like, we need an environmental shutdown. Nobody can go to work if you live in Sector 1 tomorrow. You have to have a passport to show that you're in a green area to go to work. Like, something like that's going to happen probably. Please don't be that person who's like, yeah, you shouldn't be allowed to go to work because the environment. Please, I beg of you. Come back to this video and be like, wow, Keri was a prophecy speaker. No, it's just that the writing's on the wall for some of us. That might happen. They're already doing phased brownouts in California. Like, you don't get to have power today, but you do. Why? Because of yeah. Okay. I had more stuff pulled up. I had some Jimmy Dore I wanted to watch, but I feel like I'm losing my voice. I've gone a bit long. Maybe we'll cover more of this again. I love Jimmy Dore. He also covered the Cuomo stuff. Go and check him out. I got to meet him recently at Minds Fest. I had met him previously in my old life when I worked in comedy, and it was so much cooler to meet him this time around. Frying Pants for $19.99. Thank you for the super chat. Here's some appreciation for this epic rant. It feels good to hear. Good. I hope it was cathartic. It was cathartic for me. I don't think I could have watched these clips if I wasn't able to vent about them with you guys. It would have made me too angry. Jeanette, hey, beautiful lady. Good to see you. I saw you in the chat today for $20. Thank you for supporting Deprogrammed. She says, this whole show feels like a big sigh of relief. So happy I tuned in. I've been frustrated by this whole thing this past week or so. Keri, you speak for so many of us. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for supporting the channel and all of you guys who gave super chats today. I appreciate it. I don't ask for monetary support that often. I'm saying that because I know I don't. It's not a humble brag. I know I don't compared to other channels. Mostly because I never want it to feel like you have to. It's like, if you can support the channel, great. But I don't want people to ever feel guilty. Like, if you can't, you don't have to. I want my videos to be free because I want more people to see them, because I think the stuff I'm talking about is important. So I want it to be shared. And it's more important to me that people, if they agree, if they get something out of it, that they share the videos. But I will say, I should thank people more often. And I'm really grateful for people who do support financially, because you allow me to spend as much time on this as I do. And I still work gig jobs and stuff. But I would have to work even more of them if it weren't for you guys. So I appreciate that. And, we've got goals for the channel. I've shared them. I want to do more comedy videos one day. I'm going to hire Mr. Chris, mark my words, full time. That's going to happen. So I'm very thankful for you guys and for today. Patriotic, I keep wanting to call you Patrick. Patriotic Gestalt for $5. Thank you very much. Says facts are not enough to support truth, especially when some facts are missing. That's why there's conscience. It is God's way of teaching you further. Dude, you're speaking my language today. I heard someone, Gestalt, I heard someone say, it might have been my pastor, that your conscience is like God's word speaking on your heart, spoken on your heart. It's like etched on your soul. That's why people who are not even believers, if they have a conscience, a Christian perspective on that might be because deep down, that's why when they hear God's truth, sometimes, even if they're not Christians, they agree with it, or they agree with God's moral law because it's etched on their heart. We are created this way for it to resonate with us because God put it in us. Like, this is the truth. It's on your soul. Some people don't have a conscience. I think it's hopefully very few. I don't think Chris Cuomo has a conscience. I'm sorry. I don't know if you can fix that. I'm open to being convinced otherwise, but CJ for $5. Thank you. Thank you very much. Says, who do you think is worse? People brainwashed by the COVID propaganda or those who knew COVID was nothing but fear mongered anyway? Oh my goodness. Well, in terms of being worse morally, and the psychopaths who don't care and were just pushing propaganda, I think they're the most evil. And I don't think that they can be reached. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but I don't think they can be reached or changed. And I don't try to reach those people, the ones I think are evil. But in terms of having a dangerous impact, the ones who were brainwashed and went along with it, those people are worse in that way because there's more of them. And the psychopaths couldn't control things the way they do if it weren't for the masses following like sheep. The good thing about the masses who follow it like sheep is that I think they can wake up. I think they can be reached. I know they can. And they're not evil people, most of them. They're just following evil. They're following evil people. They're following evil ideas. They're following evil things like censorship. But they can be reached. So that's why I talk about all this stuff. That's why I can't help but talk about it. Chad for $4.99. Thank you, Chad. Says it is refreshing to see people waking up. I was never woke, and I was everything the woke hated. Oh, stay strong. Dude, good for you. Also, good for you. Thanks for having such a positive attitude. I know some people who were never woke, who very few of them, thankfully, who have hearts of stone, and it's almost like they don't want other people to wake up. They're like, I was already here. I was at the party first. You got here late. I can't stand those people. I'm like, don't you want people to wake up? If they have a real change of heart, like isn't that your goal? That's my goal. I want them to come to the party late. Please come late. You can come to any party I throw late. I don't care if it's a party at my house or a waking up party. You can get here late. I want you to. And so good for you, having been at the party early, for being so kind to people who are getting there late. I appreciate that. Yes, Jeanette, we need everyone at the party. That's the goal. We all need to be united. If we were united, we could have held them accountable for COVID, even escaping the lab in the first place. Okay. I'm going to wrap it up, guys. I appreciate you hanging out. I appreciate the super chats. Thanks for supporting Deprogrammed, and thanks for all your comments. And I hope this was cathartic for you too. It was cathartic for me. And if you liked it, please consider sharing it with someone. If there's someone in your life who you think you could share the video with, who might be open to it. Maybe they're on the fence. Maybe they got bamboozled or conned, but you still love them, and I know why you do. And maybe this could be the kind of thing you give them. And I appreciate you for that. So just a couple of announcements. So Wednesday at 6:00 Central, we're doing that Christian panel. And I think, I don't want to announce it yet. She is confirmed, but I just want to make double sure before I announce it. We're going to have a very special guest. We're going to be talking about motherhood and abortion through a Christian lens. And our regular panelists are myself, Odin from OMD Reviews and FNT, Brahma Bull, and Michelle from Force of Light Entertainment. Plus, we're going to be joined by 1 or 2 special guests. That's Wednesday at 6 o'clock. We are doing book club. We rescheduled it. I'm going to be posting an announcement. We're doing it on May 30th. And the book is The Queering of the American Child by Logan Lansing and James Lindsay. You have time. Please go out and get it if you want to be a part of that discussion. Again, we're going to be talking about it on May 30th. And I think that's it for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. 2 more super chats. Patriotic Gestalt for $2. Thank you. This is better than church. Not really, though. I know you're joking. Not really. Not better than church. This is a different kind of. This is like what the kids say, like, take me to church. Ew, that kind of church. Michael Collier for $4.99. Thank you. Michael says, I was trying to take a nap, but you went live and got me pissed off. Another great show. Well, I hope you got pissed off on me, but then you came back down to a calm place. Maybe it was cathartic for you also. I hope so. You guys have a good rest of your Monday. And if you have family in town, enjoy your time with them. If you have mothers or mother-in-laws in town for Mother's Day, have a great time. I'll see you guys on Wednesday. Take care. Wait a minute. I was going to put this on screen because I saw this troll in the comments. Ivan, hi, Keri. I think Chris Cuomo's conscience is in much better shape than yours is. Hey, asshole. I don't care what you think. You know, I just wanted to stop this. There was so much positivity here, but I wanted to stop this to say this to you. I have so much less patience for people like you than I used to. I used to be kind of like, I would approach you, even if you're a jerk and an ass, I would be like, okay, well, I'll let them be an asshole like 2 or 3 times, and I'll treat them with kindness and see if they reciprocate. And maybe 5% of the time I could flip it by doing that. But the other like 95% of the time, you end up just taking a lot of unnecessary abuse from assholes. And so I don't do that anymore. I'm saying this because some of you engage with people online, and especially if you're just leaving the woke cult. I just interviewed, oh gosh, what was his name? Brian Grappner about this. And he got canceled by the woke left, and he was asking me advice for interacting with people afterwards and stuff like that. And I could tell he was at where I was at when I first left the woke cult, which is that I rarely blocked anyone. And even if they were an ass, I would let them just be an ass forever. I don't do that anymore. I'm like, this is my virtual home pretty much. So I love debate, and I love people challenging my opinions. I have a lot of friends who do that, and thank God for them, because otherwise I would fall back into maybe some kind of groupthink or tribalist thinking, like I mentioned earlier in the show. So that's great. Even passionate disagreement is fine, but learn to be discerning. You can tell the difference between someone who's passionately disagreeing with you and maybe they're caught up in their emotion. Maybe they're not being as polite as they could be. That's fine. And someone who's just an asshole. I don't have any patience for the assholes, except to use them to make fun of them or to use them to illustrate something. And I don't think you do. I don't think you need to. I think you can very safely say, meh, I'm going to weed you out of my garden of people in my sphere at all. like goodbye, weed. So thank you for being an illustration, Ivor. And that's it. Yes, exactly, Therese. The Bible tells us not to deal with those types. It does. It has a lot of things to say about fools and how to engage with fools. So, and how not to engage with fools. I've been reading a lot of those verses lately, and trying to understand the some of the ones that seem contradictory but are not. It's pretty interesting. Anyway, okay, that's it. Okay, I'm really leaving. Thank you guys. Thank you even to the angry troll. Goodbye. Okay, I gotta stop one more time. I'm so sorry. Okay, last thing. He wanted me to, I'm doing this for Ivan so he knows I'm not, okay. So he knows I saw it. He says, I'm not a troll. He messed up on the last sentence. He was trying to make a joke. Okay, but you still helped me illustrate it because there have been people who say things like that to me all the time. So even though that's not what you were trying to do, thank you. And I came back to say, Ivan, I saw your comment. I understand now that you were trying to make a joke. He says, no, I was saying Chris Cuomo's conscience is in a better shape than yours because it's still in its original wrap and unused. I get it. I get it. Ha ha ha. No worries, dude. No worries. And but anyway, you still helped me illustrate the point. So yeah, she's back round 2. Look at this. This is like, I'm not leaving. I keep saying I'm leaving. Okay, I'm leaving. No, I'm not. I'm leaving. No, I'm not. What is the opposite? John says, what's the opposite of an Irish goodbye? I love Irish goodbyes in real life. I have to do, because otherwise you say goodbye for like 2 hours. Okay. Last thing, and then we're really wrapping this up. Oceana 23, I hadn't seen you in forever. Thank you for the $20 super chat. Hey, Keri, thanks for keeping us sane during the last 4 years. The interview with Clifton Duncan during the worst of it gave me hope for the future. I probably owe you more, but I hope this helps. You don't owe me anything. Any super chat is a gift, and I appreciate it. So thank you very much. I owe you. Thank you. And I love that interview with Clifton. I love hanging out with Clifton. I got to meet him in real life during the thick of it before I ever had him on my show, before he had me on his. I had just met him on Twitter. This is why you should meet some people that you meet online. There's also crazies out there, sure, but there's also really great people. I met Clifton on Twitter, and my husband and I happened to be driving through his state. And so we met up for coffee. This is before he even started his podcast. And I got to meet him in real life, and he was as wonderful as he is online, and funny and smart. And I saw he raised a bunch of money to do a Thomas Sowell play, and I cannot wait for that. So if you don't know who Clifton Duncan is, look him up. He's awesome. Okay, I'm really leaving. I'm not coming back. I'm going to go now. I'm going to go. Okay, bye.
Oh, I'm going to go then. And I don't need any of this. I don't need this.